The acre was so rocky Grant Bell couldn't find a place to stick the little orange flag he had brought from the equipment barn. He tried once, hit limestone, moved 2 feet, and tried again. The wire bent under his boot. He glanced at Noah with the smile he used when pretending not to enjoy somebody else's embarrassment. "Well," Grant said, "there she is." 20 minutes earlier, in the dining room, the attorney had read the line twice. "To my grandson, Noah Bell, I leave the old Ram Acre on Crow Ridge, along the original west fence." Now, Noah stood beside a sagging wire enclosure that seemed designed to capture nothing but rocks. The ground rose sharply from the field, gray slabs pushing through the thin soil like bones. No gate opened toward the road. No power line came close. The only level patch was occupied by a thorn bush and the rusted axle of something that might once have been a manure spreader. Grant finally wedged the flag between two stones. Grandpa always said you could make something out of anything. Behind them, Aunt Marlene made a small warning sound. Grant lifted both hands as if Noah were the unreasonable one. Noah looked at the acre and wondered what exactly he had mistaken for love during the last 18 months. The rest of the family had received property that came with doors. Marlene got the white farmhouse, including the porch Wade had meant to repaint for 9 straight summers. Grant got the equipment barn and 22 acres of hayfield, stretching gold and smooth toward the creek. Noah's sister, Leah, received the contents of the formal dining room and a cash distribution that would not make her rich, but would let her stop moving balances between credit cards every Thursday night. Noah had received a slope. "Could have left you his collection of hospital socks," Grant said. "At least those had traction." "Grant," Marlene said. "What?" "We're all thinking it." "No," Leah said. "You're thinking it out loud." That was as close as she came to defending Noah. She stood with her arms folded, car keys hooked around one finger, already calculating how quickly she could get back to Knoxville before traffic thickened. Her eyes met his for half a second and dropped. The attorney, Ellen Park, had remained at the house. She had worn a navy suit despite the July heat and had spoken in the careful, level tone of someone accustomed to families discovering that grief did not improve their manners. She had explained that the transfers would take time, that nobody should remove or sell estate property yet, and that questions could be sent to her office. Grant had heard only the nouns: house, barn, field, cash, acre. Noah hadn't heard much after his own name. He stepped over the low wire and immediately turned an ankle on a loose stone. Grant looked away too late. Noah kept walking, though there was nowhere particular to go. The enclosure narrowed as it climbed. Multiflora rows grabbed his jeans. Near the top, somebody had dumped 3 tires and a dented wash tub. He had brought Wade up here once, 2 summers ago, before the first stroke. Or he thought he had. The ridge looked different now, boxed in by newer wire and choked with brush. Wade had leaned on Noah's shoulder and complained that the hill had gotten steeper out of spite. Back then, they had drunk cold water from a metal cup Wade kept hanging near a spring. Noah couldn't see any spring now. "You planning to farm it?" Grant called. Noah turned. "You planning to be funny all day?" "I don't have to plan it. Runs natural," Marlene said. "Like gas." Grant stared at his mother. Leah let out a laugh before covering it with a cough, and for one brief second, they were the family they had been. Before Wade's illness divided them into people who showed up, people who called, and people who explained why calling ought to count. Then Marlene checked her watch. "We should go back," she said. "Ellen's waiting." Noah followed them down. There was no easy way through the wire, so he climbed over again while Grant held the top strand with exaggerated courtesy. A barb caught Noah's shirt near the ribs and tore a neat little triangle in the cotton. "Careful," Grant said. "That's your fence now." Back inside, the dining room smelled of lemon polish and the ham biscuits Marlene had ordered from the grocery store deli. Wade's chair remained at the head of the table. Nobody sat in it. Ellen Park had arranged copies of the will in front of each place, though Grant's already bore a greasy thumbprint. Noah took his seat and found the paragraph with his name. The wording had not improved while he was outside. He read it once, then again, looking for some sentence Ellen had skipped. There was no money attached for improvement, no right to use the barn, no mention of the pickup Wade had stopped driving after the stroke. Just the old Ram Acre on Crow Ridge, along the original west fence, together with any improvements thereon. Noah pictured the wash tub. Ellen answered questions about taxes and transfer dates. Grant asked whether the tractor was part of the barn equipment or the residual estate. Marlene asked about the silver service she had never once used because Wade said coffee tasted foolish out of a pot shaped like a swan. Leah asked when the cash might be available, trying to make the question sound casual and failing. Noah asked nothing. When Ellen closed her folder, Marlene began clearing plates that no one had touched. "We'll figure out what to do with your things," she told Noah. "My things? In the back bedroom. There's no emergency. I'm not throwing you into the street." The back bedroom had been his for a year and a half, though nobody had called it his room. It was where he slept between Wade's midnight bathroom trips and 5:30 medication alarm. The dresser contained 4 shirts, 2 pairs of work pants, and a stack of overdue notices held flat beneath a lamp. "What counts as an emergency?" Noah asked. Marlene stopped with a plate in each hand. "Don't start. I'm asking how long I have." "I don't know. A week? 2? I need to get in there and see what all Daddy kept." "I kept the room clean." "That's not what I meant." It was exactly what she meant, just not all of it. The room was part of her house now, and Noah's presence had shifted from useful to awkward sometime between Wade's last breath and Ellen opening her folder. Leah caught him in the hallway while he was packing. "Come stay with me for a few nights," she said. He folded a t-shirt on the bed. "On the couch? It folds out. It folds into a metal bar with fabric over it. It's still better than whatever dramatic thing you're about to do." He looked at her. She was 32, 6 years older than him, but worry made her look younger around the mouth. She had their mother's dark hair and Wade's habit of pressing her tongue against the inside of her cheek before saying something she knew would land badly. "Don't fight this," she said. "Fight what?" "The will. Everybody's upset." Grant looked devastated. "You know what I mean? Ellen will charge money every time somebody breathes near her." "I didn't say anything about Ellen. You're doing that quiet thing. I'm packing. You always do the quiet thing first." Noah put the shirt in a duffel. "You need your money." Her jaw tightened. He wished he had not said it. He also wished it were not true. "I have debts," Leah said. "That doesn't mean I wanted Grandpa to leave you a pile of rocks." "No, you just don't want me asking whether he meant to." He signed it. "Okay, there, that's the quiet thing." Noah opened the closet. Wade's old canvas tent sat on the top shelf, smelling faintly of mildew even before he pulled it down. Beside it was a green sleeping bag with a broken zipper and an aluminum cook kit dented enough to look chewed. Leah watched him stack them on the bed. "You cannot be serious. The acre's mine. Eventually. Then I'll be eventually sleeping there. Noah, Marlene needs the room." She said 2 weeks. She said a week or 2 because Ellen was still in the driveway. Leah leaned against the doorframe. "You could call Daniel." Daniel had supervised the masonry crew Noah used to work with. He had also covered for Noah through 3 hospital admissions, 2 falls, and 1 week when Wade became convinced a long-dead cousin had stolen his mower. On the 4th emergency, Daniel had replaced him. "He's not running a shelter," Noah said. "He liked you. He liked me showing up at 7. The pickup started on the 3rd turn of the key. Its transmission gave a hard shudder when Noah backed away from the house, as if objecting to the load. In the bed, he had the tent, sleeping bag, duffel, a plastic tub of food, and the red toolbox Wade had given him years before. Marlene had not objected to the toolbox. Grant had examined it and decided the sockets were mostly missing. Noah drove the long way around to Crow Ridge because Grant's field entrance was chained. The public shoulder came within perhaps 200 yards of the fenced acre, but there was no path between them. He parked beneath a walnut tree, carried the tent through waist-high weeds, and discovered the enclosure had no gate on that side either. By dusk, sweat had soaked his shirt, and the tent leaned left. He had cleared 6 large stones from beneath it, revealing 12 more. The sleeping bag smelled worse in the evening humidity. His dinner consisted of crackers, canned beans, and the last ham biscuit he had taken from the house without asking. From the ridge, he could see the farmhouse lights come on, one by one. For 18 months, his nights had been divided into sounds. Wade's walker scraping the hall, the oxygen machine humming, a cup knocked over, a weak voice calling his name. Noah had imagined silence as a kind of mercy. On the acre, silence felt like being fired. He lay awake until after midnight, one hand beneath his head, listening to insects strike the tent. He tried not to replay Wade's final week. Wade had barely spoken then. Once, He had gripped Noah's wrist with surprising strength and said, "Don't let it wash out." Noah had assumed he meant the drainage ditch near the porch. The next morning, Wade no longer knew where he was. Rain began around 3. It found the weak seam above Noah's shoulder and dripped steadily onto the sleeping bag. He shifted 6 inches, put a cooking pot beneath the leak, and laughed once into the dark because there was nobody close enough to mistake the sound for happiness. Morning brought white heat and a headache. Noah carried the wet bedding outside, spread it over the wire, and started clearing a place for the truck. He pried at a limestone slab with a tire iron until the iron slipped and struck his shin. "That's a poor tool for the job." The voice came from behind him. A woman stood beyond the fence holding a stainless steel thermos. She was lean, sun-browned, and somewhere past 60, dressed in work boots and a faded button-down shirt. Her silver hair had been twisted into a knot and secured with what appeared to be a roofing nail. "You Ruth Calder?" Noah asked. "Depends who's asking." Noah Bell. "I know who you are." "Wade had your nose." Noah touched it before he could stop himself. Ruth poured coffee into the thermos lid and passed it over the wire. It was strong enough to remove paint. She studied the tent, the bedding, and the 6 stones he had moved. "What are you doing up here?" "Living the dream." "That dream got plumbing?" Rain comes through the ceiling. She almost smiled. Then her attention settled on the fence. She walked to the nearest post, scraped a thumbnail over the pale wood, and looked up the slope. "Who told you this was your acre?" "My grandfather's will." "I mean, who showed you this fence?" "Grant." Ruth's mouth flattened. She set the thermos in the grass and stepped over the wire with more ease than Noah had managed once. At the corner, she kicked through weeds until she exposed a shallow hole beside a square of darker earth. "Thought so," she said. "Thought what?" She looked back at him. "This isn't Wade's original west fence." Noah glanced uphill at the rocks, then toward the road he could not reach. "Where is it?" "Most of the line still where it always was." Ruth picked up her thermos. "The part Grant tore out is in my machine shed." Ruth picked up the thermos and started downhill, as if she had already invited him to follow. Noah remained beside the exposed post hole. "You saved somebody else's fence?" "I saved good locust." "That's not the same thing." It was that morning. She did not slow down. Noah set the coffee lid on a stone, pulled on his damp boots, and followed her through the weeds. The route she chose ran diagonally toward the county road, well outside the wire Grant had shown him. A faint depression in the grass suggested that wheels had once passed there, though blackberry canes had nearly closed it. Ruth stopped at a rotted stump and knocked her boot against it. "Gatepost. Used to be a cattle gap here. Wade filled it in after he quit keeping sheep. This was his lane, half his, half mine. Depends where you put your tires." The ground beyond it was still steep, but not impossible. It curved around the shoulder of the ridge instead of climbing straight over it. Noah looked back at his tent, now appearing absurdly distant within Grant's square of wire. Ruth's house sat on the other side of a low pasture, a narrow brick place with green shutters and a roof patched in 3 colors. Behind it stood the machine shed, broad and open on one side. A row of rusting implements lined the wall. Most looked older than Noah. A gray cat occupied the seat of a small tractor and watched him with proprietary suspicion. The fence lay behind stacked feed barrels. Ruth had not tossed it there. The posts rested on blocks, their ends off the ground, with the rails and rolls of wire arranged beside them. Some of the locust posts were silver and split, others were nearly black. One bore 2 rusty gate hinges, another had a faded stripe of blue paint. Noah counted 11 posts before Ruth told him there were 19. "Grant pulled all that?" he asked. "He used your granddaddy's tractor, had a chain around each post and yanked them while the ground was soft." "When?" "Last November, after Wade went to that rehabilitation place." Noah remembered November as a month of disposable coffee cups and arguments about insurance approvals. Wade had spent 19 days in a facility outside Knoxville, demanding to go home and accusing Noah of hiding his boots. Grant had visited once. He had brought a milkshake. Wade was not supposed to drink and left before the speech therapist arrived. "What did Grant tell you?" Noah asked. "That the old line was in his way. Not that Grandpa asked him to move it. He added that after I told him to stop." Ruth leaned against a feed barrel. Her expression gave away nothing, but her thumb rubbed back and forth over a dent in the lid. "I called Wade's room," she said. "Couldn't get him. Called the main number twice. They transferred me around until I ended up talking to a woman who wanted to know my relationship to the patient. What did you say? I said, annoyed. Despite himself, Noah smiled. They didn't have a box for that, Ruth continued. I went over to the house. Grant said Wade had approved the whole thing, said he needed room to turn the tractor without tearing up the hayfield. You believed him? I believed he was going to finish before anybody stopped him. So you took the posts. Grant planned to burn the rails and haul the wire for scrap. I told him they were on my side. Were they? No. The gray cat climbed down from the tractor, stretched, and walked between them. Ruth bent to scratch its head. The softness in her hand did not reach her voice. Grant called me a thieving old woman, she said. I told him one of those words was accurate. Noah crouched beside the nearest post. The wood was scarred with staple marks, some bright where the wire had been pulled free. A root clung to the pointed end, still packed with red soil. Why keep them all this time? Good locust. You already said that? It remains true. He looked up. Ruth sighed through her nose. Your grandfather and my husband set part of that fence in 1981. Wade reset the rest after the ice storm. People act like a fence is wire. Wire's the cheapest part. A proper line is decisions. Where water runs, where stock turns, which side you can get a truck through without rolling it. Her husband had died before Noah moved back to care for Wade. Noah knew that much, though he had never met the man. Wade used to mention him when repairing something badly. Calder would have called that temporary, he would say, then leave the repair unchanged for 6 years. Ruth nudged one of the posts with her toe. And, she added, I didn't trust Grant's reasons. Noah took the folded copy of the will from his back pocket. He had placed it there before leaving the tent, though he had not consciously decided why. The paper was soft at the creases from being opened through the night. Ruth read the paragraph without touching it. Original west fence, she said. Could mean the current fence. Only if the English language has had a recent accident. The new wire still runs west. So does California. That doesn't make it your boundary. Noah folded the paper again. Hope had entered the shed without permission, and he distrusted it. Hope had persuaded him that Wade would recover after the first stroke. It had persuaded him that Daniel would keep his place on the crew, that Leah would visit more often once work settled down, that Marlene's promise to relieve him on Sundays meant more than one Sunday. How much land was inside the old fence? About what the will says. That line you showed me is way downhill. It runs long and narrow. That little square Grant wrapped around the rocks is prettier on a map. If you don't mind not reaching it, why would Grandpa leave it that way? You'll have to ask a man who made conversation feel like pulling a nail with your teeth. Noah's fingers tightened around the will. Ruth noticed. Her eyes shifted toward the open side of the shed. Wade could be a difficult friend. He was sick. He was difficult before he was sick. Then he was sick and difficult. You saved his fence anyway. I contain multitudes. The cat meowed as if confirming it. Ruth selected a pair of pruning shears from a nail and headed back outside. This time they began near the road. Behind a screen of blackberry canes, she uncovered the two halves of a wooden gate, both collapsed and nearly hidden beneath vines. One hinge remained fixed to a standing post on Ruth's side. Across the lane, a squared stone marked where the other post had stood. Noah brushed moss from the stone. Its top held a shallow groove, worn by years of chain. This would give the Acre road access, he said. It used to. Grant had to know that. Grant knows every place a tractor can fit, and half the places it can't. They followed the old line uphill. Ruth cut vines while Noah pulled them aside. Every 30 or 40 feet, she found a sign, a dark post stump, wire grown into a cedar, a row of stones cleared from what had once been the lane. The line bent around a narrow bench where the soil lay deep enough for grass. From there it turned sharply and climbed toward Noah's tent, before dropping again through a grove of young sycamores. The new fence crossed the old line twice, taking in part of the rocky crest while cutting off the lane and the bench. Grant had not made Noah's share smaller so much as he had rearranged which ground appeared to belong to it. Noah stood on the bench and imagined his pickup parked without blocking the county shoulder. It was a low ambition. At that moment, it felt luxurious. Ruth pointed into the sycamores. Spring box is down there. I remember one. You ought to. Wade sent you to clean it when you were here summers. He sent me to get water. He sent you with a shovel. Noah remembered the shovel now. He had been 19, hot and irritated, spending a week with Wade because his mother insisted the old man needed company. Wade had told him to clear leaves from a stone box beneath the ridge. Noah had worked for an hour, cutting roots and scooping black muck until cold water rose around his boots. When he complained that the stones leaned inward, Wade climbed down and showed him how their weight held the earth back. "You don't fight a hill," he had said. "You teach the water where to go." At the time, Noah thought it was another of Wade's sayings designed to avoid admitting something needed money. They found the spring beneath a fallen limb and a mat of honeysuckle. The stonework had partly collapsed. Mud filled the basin. A rusted pipe emerged from one wall and disappeared downhill, its open end clogged with roots. Noah knelt and pressed his fingers into the mud. Beneath the sun-warmed surface, the water was shockingly cold. "It still runs." "Springs usually do," Ruth said. "People quit looking, then decide the water quit." An engine sounded above them. A tractor appeared on the bench, moving slowly through the weeds. Grant sat high in the seat, one hand on the wheel. A rotary cutter rattled behind him. He stopped when he saw them. Ruth did not move out of the way. Grant shut down the engine. The sudden quiet left a ringing behind it. "What are you doing?" he called. "Looking," Noah said. "At what?" "The original fence." Grant's eyes went first to Ruth, then to the exposed spring box, then back to Noah. The order was quick, but Noah saw it. "That old junk?" Grant climbed down. "That hasn't been a usable fence in years. It was usable enough for you to pull the posts." Grant wiped his palms on his jeans. "Grandpa wanted the line cleaned up. Ruth says you moved it. Ruth says lots of things. Ask her about the black panther she saw near the quarry." "It was a large house cat at dusk," Ruth said. "I issued a correction." Grant ignored her. "I straightened the fence. That's all. Made it easier to maintain." "For who? For everybody? Look at that mess. You want to spend your life trimming around a crooked fence?" Noah looked at the rotary cutter. "You came down here to trim it." Grant's face changed by one careful degree. "I use this lane to get between fields," he said. "Have for months." "So, you knew there was a lane. I knew there used to be one. And the spring?" "What about it? It's inside the old line." Grant shrugged too quickly. "That box hasn't worked right in forever." The pipe at Noah's knee gave a faint metallic tick as cold water moved through it. Grant stepped closer. "Don't start tearing into that. The line runs down to the farm. The farm you inherited, the troughs. Maybe. I don't know if it's even connected anymore." Ruth folded the pruning shears and slipped them into her pocket. "You knew enough to fence it onto your side. It isn't my side. The will hasn't transferred anything yet." "Then why'd you put Noah's flag on the rocks?" she asked. Grant looked at Noah. "You planning to turn this into something?" Noah could have said he was only trying to find a dry place to sleep. He could have admitted that he had no money for posts, pipe, a gate, or even a proper shovel. Instead, he reached into the mud and pulled a clod of leaves from the mouth of the spring. Clear water welled into the space his hand left behind. "I'm planning to find out what Grandpa gave me," he said. Grant let out a short laugh. "That sounds expensive." He walked back to the tractor and climbed onto the seat. Ruth remained in the middle of the old lane. "You going to stand there?" he asked. "For a while. I need through." "So does Noah." Grant looked toward the county road, though from where he sat, the route was nearly invisible beneath the growth. "Nothing's stopping him, except the fence you put across it. It's 4 strands of wire, Ruth. It isn't the Berlin Wall. Then you won't mind moving it." The tractor started with a cough of black exhaust. Grant backed up rather than test which of them was more stubborn. He turned the cutter in a rough semicircle, flattening a patch of goldenrod, then drove uphill by another route. At the crest, he glanced back. Noah had known Grant all his life. That look had preceded missing tools, rearranged plans, and chores that somehow became Noah's because Grant had been called away. It was not rage. Rage might have been easier. It was calculation wearing work boots. When the tractor disappeared, Ruth stepped aside. "You enjoy that?" Noah asked. "Immensely. He's going to tell Marlene you threatened him with pruning shears. I'll deny I showed restraint." Noah crouched again at the spring. Clearing the handful of leaves had exposed water, but the basin remained clogged with roots and black sediment. One wall leaned inward. A capstone the size of a suitcase had slipped halfway into the box. He tested it with both hands. It did not move. "You have a digging bar?" he asked. "I have 3. "Why 3? 1 to use, 1 to loan." One, because people don't return the one I loan. She studied the stonework. Don't pull that cap until you brace the side. Wade used to stack as if gravity was a personal acquaintance. He taught me dry stone. He taught you enough to injure yourself confidently. That sounded so much like Wade that Noah looked at her. She had already turned toward the shed. He spent the rest of the morning cutting honeysuckle from the spring box with Ruth's loaned tools. She brought a mattock, the digging bar, 2 shovels, and a coil of rope. Every handle bore a stripe of green paint. "So you can identify the ones people don't return?" Noah asked. "So people know I identified them before they tried." The work was slow. Roots had knitted through the stones. Each clump Noah removed released a thin curl of muddy water that found no clear exit. The rusted pipe was blocked solid several inches in. He worked a piece of wire inside it and pulled out a wad of pale roots resembling wet hair. Ruth made a face. Appetizing. Still better than the beans I had last night. "You ate cold beans in that tent?" "I had crackers. My mistake. A banquet." She left without explaining where she was going. Noah continued alone, grateful for the quiet and irritated by his gratitude. By noon, the sun sat directly over the opening in the trees. His damp shirt dried against his back and became wet again. He uncovered the base of the spring box, 1 stone at a time. The construction was rougher than he remembered, but the choices made sense. Larger limestone slabs held the uphill wall. Smaller stones directed overflow toward a shallow channel descending beside the pipe. The arrangement had not failed all at once. Leaves had blocked the channel, water had found gaps, and winter freezes had widened them. Neglect had done what no single storm could. Ruth returned carrying a paper plate covered in foil. "I didn't ask for food," Noah said. "Good. I dislike being ordered." Under the foil were 2 biscuits filled with egg and fried bologna. She sat on a fallen limb while he ate. The biscuits were lopsided and slightly burned. "They're terrible," she said. Noah swallowed. "Awful. You should probably finish both so nobody else suffers." He did. Afterward, they walked the original line again, this time from the spring to the upper corner. Ruth carried a can of green marking paint and sprayed small dots on stones or old stumps. Noah photographed each point with his phone. The screen was cracked, and in bright sun he could barely tell whether the images were in focus. Near the tent, the old line met a stretch of fence Grant had not removed. It ran along Ruth's property through a cluster of cedars, the wire swallowed in places but the posts standing. One of those posts carried a stripe of the same faded blue Noah had seen on the post in Ruth's shed. "Wade marked every 5th one when he reset this stretch," she said. "Had blue paint left from the barn doors. The doors are red. They used to be blue. Marlene hated them." Noah photographed the post. "You remember all of this?" "I remember things done on my land. This isn't your side." She gave him a level look. "You're beginning to understand fences." His phone rang before he could answer. Marlene's name appeared on the screen. Ruth wandered away with the paint can, granting privacy without announcing it. "Noah," Marlene said when he answered. "What are you doing with Ruth Calder? Eating bad biscuits. I'm serious." "So am I." "Grant says she's filling your head with nonsense about the boundary." Noah looked toward the bright new wire, then at the old blue-marked post leaning among the cedars. "Did you know he moved the fence?" A pause. "Not long, but clean. He did some maintenance while Daddy was away. He pulled 19 posts. Those things were rotten. They're in Ruth's shed." "What?" "He moved the line, too." Marlene lowered her voice, though Noah could hear no one near her. "Your grandfather wanted Grant handling the outside work. You know that. He wanted somebody cutting hay. That isn't the same as giving Grant a ruler. I don't know the details. Did Grandpa tell you to move it? I wasn't the one on the tractor. That's not what I asked." She exhaled sharply. "I called because Ellen found some medical bills in a drawer, and I need to know whether you already submitted them. But apparently you're busy accusing everyone of stealing dirt." Noah sat on a stone. His shin throbbed where the tire iron had struck it. "I submitted the ambulance bill," he said. "The radiology one came twice. The second is a duplicate." "Where are the account numbers?" "In the green notebook beside the microwave. There are 3 green notebooks. The one that says medical." "All right." He waited. Marlene rustled papers. "You could have told me you kept records," she said. "I did. Every time you asked how things were going. That isn't fair." "No." He had not meant the word as agreement, but she heard it that way. "Grant is trying to keep the farm functioning," she said. Please don't turn a fallen fence into some family war. He put up a new one around the rocks and told me that was my acre. Maybe he was mistaken. Grant doesn't make that kind of mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. Then he can move it back. Marlene's silence hardened. Don't do anything permanent, she said. The property hasn't transferred. If you start ripping out fences, I'm not the one who ripped it out. She ended the call without saying goodbye. Ruth stood 30 feet away, examining an oak branch with theatrical concentration. You hear all that? Noah asked. Only the parts spoken in Tennessee. He put his phone in his pocket. She knew. You don't know what she knew. She called 19 posts maintenance. Families have stretched smaller words over larger sins. The phrase irritated him because it sounded prepared. You always talk like a courthouse calendar? No. Sometimes I swear. She handed him the paint. Mark the next stump. By mid-afternoon, Noah's arms had begun to tremble from the spring work. He returned Ruth's shovel and carried the other tools toward her place. Keep the bar, she said. You have 3. I'd like to continue having 3. He leaned it against her shed wall. You planning to sleep in that wet bag again? She asked. It'll dry. There's a shower off my laundry room. No, thanks. That wasn't charity. You smell like spring mud and canned beans, and the wind favors my house. He accepted under protest, bringing clean clothes from the truck. Ruth's laundry room had knotty pine walls and a shower stall so narrow his elbows struck both sides. A ceramic dish on the windowsill held screws, buttons, and 3/4. The towel she left him was faded but clean. When he came out, Ruth was at the kitchen table sorting green beans into bowls. The house smelled like coffee and furniture wax. A framed photograph showed her beside a broad-shouldered man with a red beard gone white at the edges. Wade stood on the other side, younger and heavier, holding a coil of wire. All 3 were squinting into the sun. Noah stopped. Ruth followed his gaze. That was after we finished the south stretch. He looks happy. He'd just watched my husband fall into a creek. Did he help him out? Eventually? Noah stepped closer to the photograph. Wade's hand rested on the red-bearded man's shoulder. The gesture seemed easy, almost careless. In the final years, Wade had rationed touch, as if it cost him strength. Grandpa never talked about you, Noah said. He stopped talking about most people after your grandmother died. You could have come over. I did. He made it plain company tired him. He was grieving. So was everybody else. Ruth snapped the end from a bean. Grief doesn't make a person correct. Noah turned from the picture. You don't know what those last years were like. No, you didn't let anybody know. The words landed harder than anything Grant had said. Noah picked up his duffel. Thanks for the shower. I wasn't blaming you. Sounded efficient enough. Noah? He left through the laundry room and crossed the pasture without looking back. Halfway to the acre, his phone rang again. This time, it was Leah. Are you really camping up there? She asked. News travels. Grant says you and Ruth tried to hijack his tractor. Did he say how? No, that part lacked detail. Noah reached the wire and stepped over. His clean jeans caught on a barb in the same place as before. Leah continued. I'm bringing you dinner. I ate. Dinner made afternoon. I'll be there around 6. Leah, don't. I'm not asking. She arrived at 7 with fried chicken, a bag of ice, and a blue plastic tarp still in its store packaging. Her sedan scraped weeds along the shoulder. She walked the remaining distance in sandals unsuitable for the hill, carrying the food against her hip and complaining before she reached him. This is not an acre, she said. It is according to Grant. This is a landslide with property taxes. Noah took the ice from her. Careful, pride of ownership. She saw the green marks along the old line and stopped. What are those? Where the fence used to run. Her gaze moved downhill toward the hidden lane. For 1 second, her face became completely still. You knew, Noah said. Leah adjusted her grip on the chicken. Knew what? That Grant moved it. I knew he did some work up here. Everybody keeps calling it work. She walked toward the tent. Can we eat before the ants do? Noah followed, watching her pick her way between the rocks. She had answered too quickly, and not quickly enough. At the tent, Leah spread the new tarp over the leaking roof, while Noah held one side. Neither mentioned the fence. When they finished, she looked at the crooked shelter, then at the long green dotted line, disappearing through the weeds. You're not going to let this go, are you? She asked. Noah pulled the tarp tight. I let go of 18 months, he said. I'm keeping the acre. Leah lowered her eyes to the knot she was tying. That's not what I meant. It's what you asked. I asked if you were going to let the fight go. Not the land, they're the same thing right now. She pulled the tarp cord too hard, collapsing one side of the tent. Noah caught the pole before it fell. Great, she said. I've improved your home. It has a porch now. It has a spinal injury. They reset the pole and tied the cord around a limestone slab. Leah opened the chicken on top of the plastic food tub. She had remembered coleslaw, hot sauce, paper towels, and 2 forks, but no plates. They ate from folded pieces of foil while sitting on opposite sides of the tent entrance. The ridge cooled slowly. Below them, Grant's hayfield held the last orange light. It was beautiful from that distance, which annoyed Noah. Leah scraped coleslaw from her foil. I didn't know he moved it that far. How far did you know? I saw the new wire. I didn't come up and measure. When? She concentrated on closing the coleslaw container. Sometime after Grandpa came home from rehab. That narrows it to 7 months. I wasn't keeping a farm diary. No, you were just visiting all the time. The words came out before he decided whether to use them. Leah's hand stopped on the lid. I came when I could. I know. You always say that, like it means the opposite. Noah pulled skin from a chicken thigh. How should I say it? Maybe without sounding like you're reading my charges. You called every week. I worked. So did I. Until you didn't. He looked at her. Leah shut her eyes. I'm sorry. No, that one was honest. Leave it. I meant you lost the job. I didn't mean you weren't working here. But this wasn't work, right? This was helping out. That's why it didn't need hours or pay or relief. I offered to come. You offered weekends. Then you had something. I had a life, Noah. He set the chicken bone down. Leah looked as if she wanted to take the sentence back, but there was nowhere to put it. A moth struck the side of the tarp and fluttered under the edge. Grandpa was my life too, she said more quietly, just not on Tuesday mornings. She stood and carried the food several steps away, as though ants were the urgent problem between them. Noah watched her press lids onto containers with both palms. I'm $12,000 in debt, she said. He did not answer, not counting my car. I took a pay cut last year. My landlord raised the rent, and I kept putting things on cards. Dental work, a transmission, regular stupid life. She wiped her hands on a paper towel. The cash from the estate gets me out from under most of it. So, yes, when Ellen said disputes could delay distribution, I thought about the money. I didn't file a dispute. I know. I asked where a fence used to be. I know that too. Then why are you telling me not to fight? Because nobody in this family knows how to disagree a normal amount. Grant moves a fence. You move into a tent. Marlene starts talking like she's being interviewed after a tragedy. By next week, somebody will set a tractor on fire. I don't own a tractor. That won't save you in court. Noah almost smiled. Leah saw it and sat again, leaving less distance between them. I'm not saying take the rocks and shut up, she said. I'm saying know what you're doing before you give Grant a reason to dig in. He's already dug in. Apparently with a tractor. I'll ask him. He'll lie. He lies worse to me. How is that useful? I know which direction the lie bends. They packed the leftovers into Noah's plastic tub. Leah tried once more to persuade him to take her couch. When he refused, she did not accuse him of dramatics. She handed him the car keys and told him to sit in the air conditioning for 10 minutes while she rolled the sleeping bag to squeeze out the damp. You're wearing sandals, he said. I can roll fabric without protective footwear. She spread it again over 2 stones and aimed a small battery fan at it from her car. The fan barely stirred the heavy air, but the gesture softened something Noah was not ready to name. Before leaving, Leah stood beside the new fence and looked downhill. Where would the old gate have been? Noah pointed toward the blackberry thicket. That far? Ruth found the hinge post. Leah stared at the thicket, then up at the square of wire. I'll call you tomorrow, she said. About the fence, about whether you survived your luxury accommodations. She hugged him quickly. Noah's hands were still holding the bag of ice, so he could not decide whether to return it. By the time he set the ice down, she was already walking away. The tarp held through the night. Noah slept until sunlight heated the tent and woke to the sound of metal striking stone. Ruth was below the enclosure, cutting blackberry canes from the old lane with a brush hook. She wore leather gloves and a straw hat that made her look less severe until she spoke. You planning to help, or are you supervising? Noah climbed out. You said the property hasn't transferred. I also said that fence is wrong. I'm comfortable containing two ideas. He joined her with pruning shears. They worked without discussing the kitchen. Ruth attacked the thick canes as if they had insulted her husband. Noah dragged the cut growth aside, uncovering a pair of shallow ruts packed with leaves. After 20 minutes, he said, I did let people know. Ruth kept swinging the hook. About Wade, I called Marlene. I called Leah. And they had things going on. People generally do. You said I didn't let anybody know. I said you didn't let anybody know what it was like. What was I supposed to do? Give weekly tours of the bathroom? Ruth stopped. You were supposed to say you were drowning before you got good at breathing water. Noah threw a bundle of canes harder than necessary. That sounds like something printed on a pillow. I don't own decorative pillows. I saw 3 on your couch. Those came with the couch. I resent them. He looked at her. She leaned on the brush hook. I spoke carelessly, she said. I knew Wade was proud and difficult. I did not know how sick he'd gotten. That part isn't on you alone. It was not a full apology. From Ruth, it felt expensive. Noah bent and pulled a vine from the old rut. I shouldn't have left like that. You smelled better when you did. They resumed cutting. The lane emerged by degrees. Near the county shoulder, they freed the collapsed gate panels and propped them against Ruth's standing post. The wood was gray and soft at the bottom, but the cross braces remained solid. One iron hinge had twisted. The other still moved when Noah poured water over it and worked it back and forth. A second length of newer fence crossed the lane 20 yards uphill. Grant had stapled wire between 2 fresh posts, closing the old access completely. Ruth touched the lowest strand. Don't cut it yet. I thought you enjoyed conflict. I enjoy winning conflict. Cutting wire before the deed transfers is how people end up paying Ellen to describe their feelings. At Ruth's insistence, Noah called the attorney. Ellen answered on the 4th ring with a voice already prepared to be patient. So, Grant gets to leave what he moved, Noah said. But I can't put it back. For the moment, preserve everything as it is. It isn't as it was. I understand the distinction. Do you? Ruth held out her hand for the phone. Noah turned away from her. Ellen continued. The language in the will is specific enough that the original fence matters. That does not mean anyone should make unilateral changes while emotions are high. They're not high. They're tired. I'm going to pretend that was a joke. It was a little one. Send the photographs, Noah. He did. The files took several minutes to upload through the weak signal. Each green-marked stump appeared on his screen, followed by the blue post, the old gate hinge, the stacked locust in Ruth's shed, and the spring box. Stripped of the walk between them, the images looked like unrelated pieces of decay. Ellen replied that she had received them and would speak to the family. Noah put the phone away. Now we wait. People say that as though waiting prevents work. Ruth handed him the brush hook. Clear to the wire. They reached it near noon. The open section of lane behind them was wide enough to walk without thorns catching their clothes. From the road, Noah could now see his tent uphill. He could also see exactly how Grant's new wire barred the easier route. A pickup slowed on the shoulder. Daniel Mercer, Noah's former supervisor, leaned across the passenger seat and lowered the window. I thought that was you, he called. Noah wiped his forehead with his sleeve. Depends who's asking. Ruth made an approving noise. Daniel parked beneath the walnut. He was a compact man in his 50s with forearms like fence posts and reading glasses hanging from a cord around his neck. He looked from Noah to the cut brush, then to the tent. Leah called me, he said. Noah closed his eyes. Of course she did. Said you might be looking for work. She shouldn't have. You looking? Noah glanced at the rusted pipe visible through the sycamores. He needed gloves, fasteners, food, fuel, and a transmission that did not try to leave the truck every time he reversed. Pride offered none of those. Yes. Daniel scratched his jaw. I've got a retaining wall failing at the Hensley place. 2 days, maybe 3. Mostly tear down and sorting stone. When? 7 tomorrow. If you say yes, I need you there at 7. Not 7 unless somebody calls. Not 7 if the truck cooperates. 7. The old shame arrived on schedule. If Wade were still here, I couldn't promise that, Noah said. Daniel's expression changed, but he did not look away. Is Wade still here? No. Then I'm asking about tomorrow. Noah looked up the ridge. Grief had taken his job, then outlived the person he lost it for. I'll be there. Daniel nodded once. Bring gloves. After he drove away, Ruth picked up the brush hook. That looked painful, she said. It was a job offer, I know. They carried the freed gate panel up the lane and leaned it against Grant's crossing wire. It could not yet hang where it belonged, but for the first time the old entrance was visible from the road. Noah rested one hand on its weathered top rail. From the ridge, his acre no longer looked like a trap. It looked blocked. There was a difference. The difference mattered less at 6:30 the next morning, when Noah's pickup refused to go into reverse. He tried twice. The engine revved, the truck trembled, and nothing moved. He had parked beneath the walnut facing the road, but Ruth's car sat behind him because she had come down early with coffee. She leaned through his open window. Is that the transmission? No. The truck enjoys suspense. I can move my car. I can roll forward. There's a ditch forward. I see it. Good. I dislike being the only participant with information. Ruth moved her car, and Noah backed downhill by letting gravity perform the work Chevrolet had abandoned. He reached Daniel's job at 6:58, with sweat already drying between his shoulder blades. The retaining wall stood behind a brick ranch house on a hillside east of town. 30 feet of it had bowed outward, opening gaps wide enough for Noah's fingers. Whoever built it had stacked attractive flat stones against wet clay and trusted optimism to handle drainage. Daniel waited beside a trailer loaded with buckets, shovels, and wheelbarrows. 2 minutes to spare, he said. I like drama. You always did. Grab the sledge. They began by dismantling the wall from the top. Daniel made 3 piles: stone worth reusing, stone suitable only for fill, and stone the homeowner had purchased because it looked good in a photograph, but fractured under a chisel. Noah's hands remembered before the rest of him did. He found balance on the slope, set his feet, and worked the stones free without breaking their faces. He brushed dirt from each piece and turned it until its weight revealed the best side. The rhythm returned: lift, judge, carry, place. His body complained, but it was an honest complaint, located in muscle rather than everywhere at once. Daniel worked beside him without conversation for nearly an hour. Finally he said, You're thin. Thank you. Wasn't praise. Then you're still you. Daniel glanced at him. You eating? Ruth thinks biscuits are a medical intervention. Ruth Calder, you know her? Everybody knows Ruth. Most of us cross the road. Noah smiled and pried loose another stone. Behind it, a pocket of dark clay released a small stream of water. There, he said. Daniel crouched. The original builder had run a short drain pipe through the wall, but its uphill end stopped against solid dirt. Well, Daniel said, that's decorative. No gravel bed. No path behind it. Pull the next 3 courses. We'll see how much is trapped. Noah continued, conscious of Daniel watching his hands. The old resentment remained between them, but it no longer filled all available space. Daniel had not fired him because he lacked skill. That almost made the memory worse. At lunch, they sat in the shade of the trailer. Noah ate the leftover fried chicken Leah had brought. Daniel drank unsweetened tea from a gallon jug. How was she? Daniel asked. Who? Leah. You talked to her. For 4 minutes. She packed 40 minutes of information into it. She's gifted. She said you got left some land, a geological sample, and you're living on it. I didn't know she was giving a presentation. She was worried. She worries through third parties. Saves time. Daniel screwed the cap onto his tea. You could have called me. For a bed or a job? Either. You already gave me more chances than I used. I gave Wade chances. You used yours up 1 missed morning at a time. Noah stared at the chicken bone in his hand. Daniel rubbed his thumb over a scratch in the jug. That came out meaner than I intended. It came out accurate. It can be both. They returned to work. By late afternoon, the wall lay sorted across the yard, and the trapped soil had begun to drain. Daniel paid Noah in cash for the day and told him to return at 7. Thought you said 2 or 3 days. I did. So, why pay daily? Daniel gave him a look. Because I heard about the truck. Noah folded the bills without counting them. Leah again? The truck told me when you pulled in. The transmission caught first try when he left, which felt like mockery. At the ridge, a silver sedan and Grant's pickup were parked beneath the walnut. Marlene stood beside the old gate panel in white canvas shoes already stained green. Grant had one hand resting on the crossing wire. Ruth watched from her side of the lane, arms folded. Noah got out slowly. Ellen called, Marlene said. That was quick. She sent the photographs. To everybody? To the interested parties. Ruth raised a hand. I enjoyed the one of my feed barrels. Marlene did not acknowledge her. She says the original fence language needs to be addressed before the distribution is finalized, Marlene continued. Grant and I think we can address it without making this adversarial. Grant moved it while Grandpa was in rehab. We're not relitigating every farm decision. We haven't litigated it once. You know what I mean? Grant took over. The old line was a maintenance nightmare. That lane washes, the lower corner stays wet, and nobody's run stock through that gate in years. I straightened it so we could keep the brush down. You fenced out the road. So we'll give you access across the hayfield. Give me? A permanent route from the barn road to your fence. Better surface. Shorter drive. It crosses your field. Along the edge. Noah looked where Grant pointed. The route would run from the barn entrance across the lower slope, then climb sharply toward the newer enclosure. It depended on Grant's gate, passed within sight of the farmhouse, and ended at the worst side of the acre. What happens when you cut hay? Noah asked. You stay to the edge, and when it rains, you wait till it dries. Ruth spoke without raising her voice. That's not access. That's permission dressed for church. Marlene turned. Ruth, this is a family discussion. Then why are you having it on my half of the lane? We're trying to prevent unnecessary conflict. You brought Grant. Grant pushed away from the wire. Can we stop acting like I stole Tennessee? It's a crooked fence around 1 acre. The amount of land is the same. Then put it back, Noah said. The muscle near Grant's jaw shifted. It doesn't make sense for the farm. There it was, not an apology, not an admission, but the truth shirt cuff showing beneath the lie. Marlene opened her handbag. We've considered that. She produced an envelope. Noah did not take it. What is that? An alternative. Grant will grant the access route at no cost, and I'll give you $3,000 from my own funds once the transfer is complete. Ruth made a low sound. Marlene's face flushed. His truck needs repair. The land needs work. I am offering practical help. For what? Noah asked. For agreeing that the existing fence will remain the boundary. The existing fence you said was a mistake. I said Grant may have been mistaken about what Daddy intended. You're offering $3,000 for a mistake? I'm offering peace. Grant looked toward the spring. The glance lasted less than a second. Noah saw it anyway. What about the water line? He asked. Grant's head turned back. What about it? If the old fence is restored, the spring box is on my acre. It was always part of the farm system. It doesn't work. I said I wasn't sure. You were sure enough to tell me not to touch it. Marlene held out the envelope. Nobody is trying to take water from you. Then why isn't the spring in your offer? The paper trembled slightly in her hand. Whether from anger or discomfort, Noah could not tell. Grant stepped closer. Because it's a muddy hole with a plugged pipe. You're making it sound like we found the Mississippi. Then you won't mind me keeping it. It feeds downhill, to your field, to the troughs, if anything's still connected. That doesn't make it valuable, it makes it useful. Noah looked at the envelope again. $3,000 would cover a used transmission if he found the right shop. It would buy a proper tent, work boots without cracks, food that did not come from somebody else's kitchen, and enough fuel to keep Daniel's job. All he had to surrender was ground his family had already trained him to think was worthless. Marlene seemed to read the calculation on his face. Take tonight, she said. Think about what actually helps you. Daddy would not want this ugliness. Noah wanted to ask whether Wade would have wanted his fence moved while he was unable to object. Instead, he took the envelope. Grant relaxed. I said I'd think, Noah told him. The relaxation vanished. Marlene and Grant left together. Grant had to reverse his pickup nearly 100 feet because the old lane was still too overgrown to turn around. Ruth waited until both vehicles reached the road. You want my opinion? She asked. No? Good. I wore it out during the meeting. Noah opened the envelope. Inside was a single typed page describing the proposed route and payment. No check. At the bottom, Marlene had left spaces for signatures. Ruth read his face. 3,000? How did you know? She offered me 2 to stop complaining when Grant moved the fence. 2,000? 200. Noah laughed before he could help it. Ruth pointed toward the spring. Come look at something. The water he had freed the day before had cleared a small channel through the mud. It now gathered behind the tilted capstone and slipped into a gap beside the rusted pipe. A thin stream emerged from the overflow channel, crossed the old fence line, and disappeared downhill. Ruth handed him a flashlight. Pipe's still blocked, but the box is filling faster than it drains. Noah shone the beam into the cold water. Beneath the cloudy surface, the floor appeared paved with flat stone. The uphill wall was not one wall, but two, with a narrow gravel-filled space between them. "French drain," he said. "Wade and my husband rebuilt it after a wet spring. Took them 6 weekends because they argued about every rock." Noah touched the leaning capstone. "It can be fixed. Most things can. Cost's the rude part." He folded Marlene's offer and put it in his pocket. At the tent, his phone showed a missed call from Leah. He called back while changing into dry clothes. "Did Marlene find you?" she asked. "She brought an offer. I heard. 3,000 in access across Grant's field. That could fix your truck." "It could." Leah was quiet. "What are you going to do?" "Why does Grant need the old lane?" "For his tractor, I guess. He has 22 acres. Why does he need my one?" "I don't know." "And why does he need the spring?" The silence changed. Noah sat on the edge of the sleeping bag. "Leah. He said the trough line was dead. When?" "I don't remember. That isn't what I asked." She drew a breath. "Before Grandpa came home from rehab." Outside, water moved faintly through the open channel, too soft to hear unless Noah held still. "He talked to you about the fence," Noah said. "Noah, I have to go." "Leah." But she had already ended the call. Noah called back. Leah let it ring until voicemail answered in her bright recorded voice, the one that sounded as if she had never disappointed anybody. He hung up before the tone. The typed offer remained in his pocket through the night. Whenever he turned, the folded paper pressed against his hip. Around 2, he took it out and set it beneath the cookpot so the wind would not carry away $3,000 worth of peace. He arrived at the retaining wall at 6:45. Daniel looked at his watch. "Trying to build credit? My transmission likes empty roads." "Your transmission likes last rites." They spent the morning cutting a trench behind the dismantled wall. Noah laid perforated pipe on washed gravel, while Daniel shaped outlet stones. The homeowner, Mrs. Hensley, brought lemonade in 2 tall plastic cups and apologized because it was made from powder. Daniel drank half of his in one pull. "Powders. How you know it's lemonade?" Mrs. Hensley pointed toward the stones spread across her lawn. "It looks worse than when you started." "That's our guarantee," Noah said. She laughed. Daniel waited until she went inside before giving him a sidelong look. "What? You used to tell customers that?" "I used to let you talk." "Good system. Consider restoring it." By noon, they had the drainage bed level and the first course set. Noah selected broad stones for the base, turning each until it stopped rocking. Daniel checked the face with a string line, but he did not adjust Noah's work. The physical certainty steadied him. A stone either sat or it did not. Water either had a root or found one. Nobody could call a blocked pipe an interpretation. During lunch, Noah took Marlene's offer from his pocket and unfolded it on the trailer fender. Daniel read only the first few lines. "What am I looking at?" "A cheaper transmission. That paper has fences in it. Marlene offered me $3,000 to leave the new boundary where it is." "The new boundary being the one that locks you on the hill?" "Yes." "Then it's an expensive transmission." Noah refolded the page. "You have advice? I fired you. That makes me a poor source of comfort." "I didn't ask for comfort." Daniel wiped stone dust from his forearms. "If somebody offers money before you name a price, they aren't buying what they said. What are they buying? You're the one who walked the ground." Noah thought of Grant looking toward the spring. Daniel picked up his gloves. "There, advice delivered. I feel dirty." They finished the second course before quitting. Daniel told Noah the wall would take another day, possibly 2, if Mrs. Hensley continued bringing lemonade at a rate that encouraged conversation. He also had a chimney repair the following week and said he could use Noah if he remained available. Noah heard the condition beneath the offer. Available meant not vanishing into an emergency. It meant answering his phone and still arriving after bad news. "I can do it," he said. Daniel held his gaze for a moment. "All right." The pickup made it out of the driveway, shifted hard at the first intersection, and lost power halfway up the road toward Crow Ridge. Noah pressed the accelerator. The engine climbed uselessly while the truck rolled backward. He guided it onto the shoulder and sat gripping the wheel. Daniel's truck appeared behind him a minute later. He pulled over and walked up carrying a red shop rag. "I did not arrange this for dramatic effect," Noah said. "Open the hood. The transmission isn't under the hood. The dipstick is, smart man." The fluid was low and smelled burned. Daniel poured in a quart he carried for his trailer truck, then stood back while Noah tried again. The pickup moved, though the shift struck hard enough to rattle the toolbox in the bed. "How long will that last?" Noah asked. Daniel capped the empty bottle. "Longer than if I hadn't poured it in." "Useful. Drive it to Pruitt's. Let him look. I have a job tomorrow." "You have half a job tomorrow if you leave the truck blocking Mrs. Hensley's hydrangeas." Pruitt listened to the transmission in the gravel lot, drove a slow circle behind the shop, and returned wearing the expression of a doctor whose patient had arrived too late, but might still purchase expensive optimism. "Could rebuild it," he said. "$2,800, maybe $32 if the housing's damaged. Used one would be less if I can locate it." Noah heard Marlene's figure with almost comic clarity. "How long? Rebuild? Week. Used, depends. I need it tomorrow." Pruitt looked at the truck, then at Noah. "It may need something different." Noah paid for 2 bottles of fluid and drove away before the truck could embarrass him in the lot. Ruth was working at the spring when he reached the ridge. She had cleared the overflow channel several yards downhill, exposing a shallow bed lined with hand-sized stone. Water darkened the soil, but did not yet run freely. She glanced at the pickup. "It sounds worse." The mechanic used the phrase, "housing damage." "Your truck has a house? Apparently nicer than mine." He showed her the estimate written on the back of Pruitt's business card. Ruth did not mention the number in Marlene's offer. She did not need to. "I have an old Ford," she said. "Runs when it remembers." "I'm not borrowing your truck." "I wasn't offering, I was describing my wealth." Noah set his tools beside the spring. "Daniel can use me next week. That good?" "It would be if I can get there." Ruth returned to the channel. "My husband used to say a vehicle only needed 3 things: fuel, compression, and a person willing to lie about the noise." How long did he believe that? Until the engine caught fire outside Maryville. They worked until the light weakened. Noah cleared more roots from the pipe, while Ruth sorted fallen stones by size. The capstone remained tilted, too dangerous to move without bracing the uphill wall. Water gathered around it, clean near the source and brown where their boots disturbed the bed. Marlene called as Noah was washing mud from his hands. "I need an answer," she said. "You told me to take the night. It is the next night. I noticed. Ellen wants to schedule a meeting. If we tell her we've resolved the boundary, we can avoid more expense. My truck needs a transmission." Marlene's tone softened. "Then you understand why I made the offer." "You made the offer before you knew that." "I knew the truck was failing. Everyone knew. 3,000 almost covers it." "Exactly." Noah looked at the spring box. Even partly clogged, it had refilled after he and Ruth bailed muddy water from one corner. Why did Grant tell Leah the trough line was dead before Grandpa came home from rehab? Marlene said nothing. He talked to her about moving the fence. "You need to ask Leah what Leah heard. I tried. She's upset. So am I." "You make being hurt sound like a job nobody else can perform." The accuracy of it stung more than an insult would have. Marlene continued, quieter now. "Daddy's death was not easier for us because you were the one in the house. No, it was easier before he died. That is cruel. It's also true." He wished he could pull the sentence back. Marlene's breathing came through the phone, thin and uneven. "I loved my father," she said. "I know. Don't say it like that." He heard Leah in the words and closed his eyes. Marlene steadied her voice. "Are you accepting the proposal?" "No." The answer surprised him by arriving whole. "Noah, think. I have. You can't repair your truck with principle. I can't drive across Grant's Field every time I want to go home, either. You're living in a tent, still home. You are choosing hardship to punish us. No. I'm refusing to sell the part that makes the acre usable. What do you expect Grant to do? Put back what he moved." Marlene ended the call with the same abrupt silence Leah had used. Noah tucked the phone away. Ruth was setting stones in the overflow channel and gave no sign she had listened. "I told her no," he said. "That your final answer?" It was on the phone. Phones encourage final answers. People can hang up before doubt starts. The truck estimate remained in his other hand. He folded it around the offer page until both formed a thick square. Headlights swept across the lower trees. Leah's sedan stopped beside Noah's pickup. This time she wore jeans and lace-up boots. She climbed out without food, tarp, or an excuse for coming. Ruth looked from her to Noah. "I'm going to put away tools very slowly." She gathered the shovels and headed toward her house. Leah approached the spring, but stayed beyond the muddy channel. "You told Marlene no," she said. "Fast news. She called me crying." Noah picked up a loose stone and fitted it beside the overflow. "Did she mention the fence?" "She mentioned you accusing everybody. I asked what you knew. I told you. You told me Grant said the trough line was dead. You didn't tell me why you were discussing it." Leah rubbed her palms against her jeans. "He called while Grandpa was at rehab. Said he was cleaning up the upper boundary and getting some useless stuff ready to sell." "What stuff?" "Old implements, scrap. Things Grandpa didn't use. Grandpa was alive. I know that." "Did he approve it?" "Grant said he did." "Did you ask Grandpa?" Leah looked toward the water. "No. Why?" He could barely finish a phone call then. Every question upset him. "That didn't stop you asking whether he remembered the savings bonds." Her head came up. "That is not fair." "Did you hear the tractor?" The question hung between them. Leah stepped across the channel and nearly slipped. Noah reached automatically, then stopped before touching her arm. "I came to the house that Saturday," she said. "Grant was already up here. I heard the tractor, and later I saw posts chained in a pile near the barn. Ruth's posts, I guess." "You saw him take the fence out." "I saw posts, and said nothing. He told me it was rotten. He said straightening the line made the field easier to work and would keep the farm from losing value. He was helping sort equipment, and I thought—" She pressed her tongue against her cheek. "I thought if he kept things running, there would be less debt against the estate, more left for everybody. There it is. I didn't know what the will said. You knew Grandpa hadn't come home. I believe Grant." "No, you believe not asking was better for you." Leah flinched. At the reading, Noah remembered, she had looked away when Grant planted the orange flag. She had not been confused. She had been hoping confusion would hold. "I should have said something yesterday," she whispered. "You should have said something in November." "Yes." The word left him with nowhere to push. Leah looked at the tilted capstone, the exposed pipe, and the green marks climbing through the weeds. "I'm sorry." Noah picked up another stone. His hands had begun to shake, so he set it down again. "Go home, Leah. I came to help. You came because Marlene cried. I came because I lied to you." He met her eyes. "Then tell the truth somewhere it cost you," he said. "Not just here." Leah stood beside the cold water for several seconds. Then she turned and walked back toward her car. She did not promise anything. For once, that made Noah believe her. Ruth waited until the sedan's taillights vanished before returning with the tools she had supposedly gone to store. "That was quick," Noah said. "I forgot the shovel." "You're carrying two." "I forgot them both." She set one beside the spring. Noah picked up the stone he had abandoned, turned it, and placed it along the channel. It rocked. He lifted it again. Ruth watched him try the opposite face. "She tell you?" she asked. "Enough. Enough is usually the painful amount." She saw Grant taking out posts, believed him when he said Wade approved it. Did she? She believed, not asking. Ruth selected a flatter stone and handed it over. People are talented at believing what leaves their schedule intact. Noah fitted the stone. This one held. "I told her to tell the truth where it cost her." That's a fine sentence. It was mean. Those categories overlap. The following morning, Noah's transmission chose the bottom of Ruth's driveway to stop pretending. The pickup rolled backwards 6 feet and came to rest with one rear tire in her flower bed. Ruth stood on her porch holding her coffee. "Those were irises," she said. "They still are. They're horizontal irises." Noah tried drive, reverse, and a combination involving an apology to the steering wheel. The truck answered with a high whine. Ruth disappeared into her garage and returned in an old brown Ford with one primer gray door. Its exhaust had a loose rattle, and the bench seat was split down to yellow foam. "You said I couldn't borrow it. You can't. I'm driving. I need to work all day. I've been looking for 8 uninterrupted hours in a truck." Daniel's eyebrows lifted when Ruth dropped Noah at the Hensley house. "Carpool?" he asked. "Don't," Noah said. Ruth leaned across him and called through the passenger window, "Have him ready by 5. I charge waiting time." She drove off before Daniel could answer. The wall rose steadily that day. Noah set the face stones while Daniel filled behind them with clean gravel. Each course leaned slightly into the hill. The drain outlet emerged low and plain between two large stones, its purpose more important than its appearance. By mid-afternoon, Mrs. Hensley stood on the patio admiring it. "It looks like it was always there," she said. "That's the idea," Daniel told her. Noah wiped his hands on his pants. The wall did not look new. It looked settled. He had forgotten how satisfying it was to finish something that would remain after he left. Daniel checked the final section with his line. "Still got your eye. Thought you hired me for my personality. I considered sending you home for it." They packed tools until Ruth's Ford rattled into the driveway at exactly 5. A tow strap lay coiled in the truck bed. "You own a strap?" Noah asked when he climbed in. "I own 2. One to use, one to loan, and one because nobody returns the loaned one. You do listen." They pulled his pickup out of the irises and towed it beneath the walnut. Ruth made him steer the dead truck while she drove the Ford. Each downhill turn tightened the strap with a jolt that made his teeth meet. At the Acre, she handed him the Ford keys. "I thought I couldn't borrow it. You can't. You may prevent it from rusting in one place until your truck is fixed. What if I wreck it? Try to improve the gray door." Noah closed his fingers around the keys. "I can pay something. You can put fuel in it, not the cheap kind. There's more than one kind. Give those back." He held on. A message from Ellen waited on his phone. Family meeting at the farmhouse, Friday at 4. Ruth had been asked to attend because the fence crossed their shared boundary and because she possessed the removed materials. "Possessed," Ruth said when he read it aloud. "Makes me sound biblical. You did take 19 posts, saved, from their owner, from Grant, who wasn't their owner." She looked pleased. "Now you're learning." The dining room felt smaller on Friday. Someone had removed Wade's chair from the head of the table, leaving a pale rectangle in the rug where its legs had stood. Noah noticed before he noticed anything else. Marlene sat rigidly beside Ellen. Grant occupied the far end, one ankle resting on his knee. Leah had chosen the chair between him and Noah, though she did not look at either of them. Ruth arrived carrying the blue-striped post from her shed over one shoulder. Marlene stared. "Was that necessary?" "No," Ruth said. "It was heavy." She leaned it against the wall beside the silver service. A flake of dirt fell onto the rug. Ellen opened a folder. "We are not here to determine whether anyone had bad intentions." "Convenient," Grant said. "We're here to determine whether the family can agree on what property Wade intended to devise to Noah without further proceedings." "The acre behind the new fence," Grant said. Ellen turned to him. "The will does not say new fence. It says west fence. It says original west fence. Every fence was original once." Ruth made a choking noise. Ellen removed her glasses. "Grant, I am trying very hard to help this family avoid paying me to listen to sentences like that." Leah looked down. Noah saw the corner of her mouth move, then flatten. Ellen spread printed versions of Noah's photographs across the table. The surviving blue-marked line on Ruth's side, the empty post sockets, the stacked materials, the old gate, the spring box. Grant kept his eyes on the picture of the spring, longer than the others. "And if we don't?" Grant asked. "Then you can all spend time and money proving the location of a fence Ruth watched you remove." Ruth folded her hands pleasantly. Grant sat forward. "I didn't hide anything. The posts were rotten, the lane was overgrown. I made the line maintainable." "Why while Grandpa was in rehab?" Noah asked. "Because there was time." "Whose time? Mine? I was doing the farm work, remember?" Noah felt Leah shift beside him. Marlene touched the photographs. "Daddy did ask Grant to manage the fields." "He did," Grant said. "He knew I needed better access." "Did he tell you to move the fence?" Noah asked. "I told you he wanted it cleaned up." That wasn't the question. Grant looked around the table as if waiting for somebody to object to Noah's tone. "Nobody did." "Did he tell you?" Noah repeated. "To pull those posts and put a new fence around the rocks?" "Not in those words." Ruth glanced at Ellen. English surviving so far. Grant's face reddened. He could barely talk by then. "We had discussed straightening that line before." "When?" Marlene asked. "Plenty of times, before or after the stroke. What difference does that make?" Marlene's hand withdrew from the photographs. "It makes the difference between Daddy agreeing and you deciding for him." Grant looked at Leah. "You knew I was working up there." Leah's hands lay clasped on the table, knuckles pale. "I knew you called it cleanup," she said. "Because that's what it was. You told me Grandpa approved it. He did. You just said he didn't tell you to move it. I said we'd discussed it. Leah's voice shook, but did not soften. I heard the tractor that Saturday. I saw the post by the barn. I didn't ask Grandpa because I wanted to believe you were protecting the farm's value. I also knew you were sorting equipment, and I thought if I challenged you, you might stop helping and there'd be less left in the estate. Marlene turned toward her. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have said Grant knew the farm. I do know the farm, Grant snapped. Leah looked at Noah then. And after the will was read, I knew the new fence was the one Grant had put up. I should have said that when he showed Noah the rocks. I didn't, because Ellen had just warned us a dispute could hold the distributions. Noah had demanded the truth. Hearing it in the room did not feel like winning. Leah's shame occupied the space where relief should have gone. Grant pushed back his chair. So, this is what we're doing? Everybody gets scared of looking greedy, and I become the villain for keeping the place running? You moved the fence, Noah said. I improved the route. For yourself. For the farm. The farm you inherited. Grant stood. I didn't write the will. No. You just edited the ground after it was written. The room went still. Ellen placed both palms on the table. The practical proposal is to restore the original line using the surviving features and the materials Ruth preserved. The estate can cover replacement wire as a maintenance expense. The old lane remains with the Acre Wade described. Existing water use can be addressed separately if it becomes relevant. It is relevant, Grant said. Then we address it separately. Marlene looked at him. Grant, let the fence go back. He stared at his mother. Daddy wrote original, she said. You shouldn't have changed it without making certain. I was making this place usable, and now Noah needs his usable. Grant's chair struck the wall when he shoved it under the table. He left through the front door hard enough to rattle the glass. Nobody spoke until his truck started outside. Ellen gathered the photographs. Can I record that the remaining beneficiaries agree to restoration along the identifiable prior line? Leah said yes. Marlene did not answer immediately. Her gaze rested on the empty place where Wade's chair had been. Yes, she said at last. Noah looked at the blue-striped post. Yes. Ruth lifted it onto her shoulder. Glad I carried this in. Ellen put her glasses back on. It was persuasive. No, it wasn't. No, it was heavy. Outside, Leah caught Noah near Ruth's Ford. I meant what I said, she told him. I heard you. I didn't do it just because you told me to. I know. That was all he could give her. She nodded as if it were more than she expected. The next morning, Noah found her at Ruth's machine shed, wearing the same boots. The 19 posts had been laid out on the grass. Ruth was testing each one with a hammer, separating solid wood from rot. Leah picked up one end of the blue-striped post. I told Marlene I'm staying, she said. Noah took the other end. For how long? Until it costs me. Ruth pointed toward the waiting Ford. Save the family healing for after we load, she said. Locust doesn't get lighter while people grow. The post did, in fact, get heavier. By the time Noah and Leah carried it from Ruth's shed to the Ford, the old Locust seemed to have absorbed every apology neither of them knew how to make. They lowered it into the bed beside 6 others, and the truck springs gave a tired creak. Ruth struck another post with the hammer. The wood answered with a deep, solid note. This one stays. Leah wiped her palms on her jeans. What happens to the bad ones? Firewood. Isn't Locust hard to split? Very. Why do you sound pleased? I enjoy winter projects that create regret. They loaded 12 usable posts. The remaining 7 were soft at the ground line or split through their staple holes. Ruth had stacked the rails separately, though most were too weathered to bear weight. Noah chose 3 for the gate and left the rest. The blue-striped post rode last, extending over the tailgate. Leah tied a red rag to it. Now it's legal, she said. That rag came from my good shop towel, Ruth said. It had a hole. It had character. They drove slowly across the pasture. Noah sat in the truck bed with one hand on the posts to keep them from rolling. Leah rode up front. Through the rear window, he could see her listening while Ruth talked. Whatever Ruth said made Leah laugh, then look back at him. At the old lane, they unloaded the posts in order. Ruth had remembered roughly where each belonged and had marked them with chalk. The blue-striped one returned to the upper stretch near the cedars. The hinged post went beside the road. Leah stood over the square stone, marking the missing gatepost. Where do we start? Digging, Noah said. I was afraid you'd say that. The hole's already here. It's filled with 40 years of spite. Ruth has a tool for that. Ruth handed her the digging bar. The old post socket had collapsed at the edges and filled with roots. Leah worked the bar while Noah cleared loose soil with a narrow shovel. Every few minutes she stopped to stretch her shoulders and glare at the hole. "You knew this was going to take all day," she said. "I thought you came until it cost you. I meant socially." By noon, the post stood plumb. Noah packed crushed stone around its base and tamped it in layers. Ruth checked it from 2 directions, then pushed against it with both hands. "It'll do." Leah leaned on the shovel. "That's the nicest thing she's said today. I complimented your boots. You said they were less foolish. Growth deserves recognition." At the crossing wire, Noah paused with the bolt cutters in his hand. Ellen's email authorizing restoration was saved on his phone. Marlene had agreed. Leah had agreed. Grant's consent was no longer necessary for the estate to put back what he had changed. The wire still felt like his. Not legally, personally. Grant had stretched it, stapled it, and presented it to Noah as fact. Cutting it would turn the argument into a visible act nobody could pretend had happened accidentally. Leah noticed his hesitation. "You want me to do it?" "No." He closed the jaws around the top strand. The wire snapped with a sharp metallic recoil. Ruth caught the loose end before it struck him. "Gloves," she said. "I'm wearing gloves. Better ones." They cut the remaining strands and rolled them back to the nearest new posts. Grant's square enclosure opened onto the old lane. Nothing dramatic changed. No hidden view appeared. No music rose from the trees. There was simply a gap wide enough for a vehicle. Ruth drove the Ford through first. The truck bumped over roots, followed the curve around the ridge, and climbed onto the narrow bench. For the first time, Noah reached the acre without climbing wire or crossing Grant's field. Ruth parked beneath a sycamore and lowered the window. "Well," she said, "civilization has arrived." The muffler announced it. They spent the afternoon moving Noah's tent from the rocky crest to the bench. The ground there was not flat so much as cooperative. Noah cleared stones, Leah raked leaves, and Ruth watched them orient the entrance downhill before saying the wind came from that direction in storms. They turned the tent. Then she said runoff crossed the opposite corner. They moved it 6 feet. When they finally drove the stakes, Leah lay on her back in the shade. "I understand why people buy houses already built." Noah set the food tub inside. Marlene got one free. Leah's face tightened. He regretted it, though the sentence remained true. "She wants to come up," Leah said. "Why?" "To bring the replacement wire. Ellen said the estate could pay. She can leave it by the road. She's trying." She offered to buy the spring yesterday. She didn't understand the spring. She didn't ask. Leah sat up. "You're right. But if everybody has to understand before they're allowed to do better, this family is finished." Noah pulled the sleeping bag onto the drier ground. "Maybe it is." She looked at him for a long moment, then picked up the rake and went back to work. Marlene arrived while they were repairing the gate panels. She had changed from white canvas shoes into old rubber boots and brought 2 rolls of woven wire in Grant's pickup, though Grant was not with her. She also carried the green medical notebook Noah had kept beside the microwave. "I found the duplicate bill," she said. "Good. And the schedule you made for his prescriptions. You can throw that away. I thought there might be other things I needed to keep. He doesn't need them now." Marlene held the notebook against her chest. "I know that." Noah set down the brace he was measuring. Ruth took Leah toward the spring on the pretense of needing help with rope. Neither woman attempted to make the pretense convincing. Marlene looked around the bench. The tent, under Leah's blue tarp, had begun to resemble a blue hump growing from the earth. "You moved," she said. "Better ground." "I didn't realize this part was level." That was the idea. She flinched at the accusation, though Noah had spoken without emphasis. "Grant said the old lane stayed wet," she said. "It drains if you clear it. He said maintaining it would be constant work. Most land is." Marlene glanced uphill toward the rocks enclosed by the remaining new wire. "I should have come out here before." "Yes. You don't have to make every apology difficult. You haven't made one." Her mouth opened, then closed. She set the medical notebook on a stump. "I depended on you too much," she said, "with Daddy." Noah waited. "I thought, because you were already staying there, and because you knew what he needed." She rubbed a thumb along the notebook's spiral edge. "Every time I called, you said you had it handled. What should I have said? That you didn't. Would you have come?" Marlene looked toward Leah and Ruth beside the spring. Not enough. It was not the answer Noah wanted. It was close enough to hurt. She pointed at the wire in the truck. Where do you need those? He showed her the upper line. Together they rolled the heavy bundles onto the ground. Marlene's boot slipped once, and Noah caught her elbow. She thanked him without looking up. Before leaving, she touched one of the old gate rails. Daddy kept sheep up here when we were young, she said. Mean little things. One knocked Grant into the water trough. Maybe it recognized character. Marlene laughed. The sound escaped unexpectedly, followed by a hand over her mouth. For a moment, grief changed her face so completely that Noah saw the daughter she had been instead of the aunt who owned his old room. Then she picked up her handbag. Grant won't help with the fence, she said. I didn't ask him. He thinks we embarrassed him at that meeting. He embarrassed himself in November. That may be true. It doesn't make him less angry now. After she left, Noah found the medical notebook still on the stump. Inside the front cover, Marlene had written the date of Wade's death beneath Noah's medication chart, then crossed it out so hard the pen tore the paper. Daniel's wall was finished the following afternoon. Mrs. Hensley paid him and brought out a photograph of how the yard had looked before the failure. Daniel pretended to study the picture while finishing a third glass of powdered lemonade. Noah received 4 days' pay, enough to order new gate hinges, fencing staples, and a length of pipe for the spring without touching the money set aside for food and fuel. Pruitt had located a used transmission but wanted $1,800 plus labor. The amount remained beyond him, though no longer impossibly distant. Daniel pointed toward Ruth's Ford when Noah prepared to leave. How long do you have that? Until it rusts somewhere interesting. The chimney job starts Tuesday. I'll be there. You keep saying that like I'm the one who needs convincing. Noah drove back with the gate hardware on the floorboard. Leah's sedan was already beside the road. She and Ruth had reset 2 more posts while he worked. Neither stood perfectly straight, which Ruth blamed on Leah and Leah blamed on Tennessee. The fence grew over the next several evenings. They set posts where the old sockets remained, replaced rotten ones with new locust Ruth cut from her back lot, and stretched the woven wire a section at a time. Noah kept the upper strands loose enough to adjust until the corners were braced. At the spring, he built a temporary timber support beneath the slipped capstone. He removed the leaning stones, cleaned the gravel behind them, and reset the wall with its face angled slightly uphill. Water clouded each time he worked, then cleared overnight. The pipe remained stubborn. A flexible rod traveled 12 feet before striking something solid. Collapse section, Noah said. Or a very committed root, Ruth answered. He began tracing the pipe downhill by probing the soil. The root crossed the old lane below the spring and continued toward Grant's hayfield. The first rebuilt gate hung on a humid Thursday evening. It sagged once, forcing Noah and Leah to lift it off and reset the hinge. The second time, it swung over the lane with an inch to spare. Leah closed it and dropped the chain over the post. "Look at that," she said. A barrier with consent. Noah was still laughing when the tractor engine sounded below them. Grant came up the lane pulling the rotary cutter. He did not stop at the road gate. He climbed down, lifted the chain, drove through, and left the gate open behind him. Noah walked into the lane. Grant slowed but kept the tractor moving. "Need to reach the upper field. Use your route. This is my route. It's inside my fence. It's a farm lane, Noah. Always has been." Then ask. Grant stopped close enough that Noah smelled hot diesel. "You want me to ask every time I do my job? I want you not to act like my gate is decoration." Behind Noah, Leah came down from the spring. Grant saw her and gave a bitter smile. "Got a committee now?" "She helped build it," Noah said. "Congratulations?" He accelerated before Noah could answer. The tractor passed within a few feet, its rear tire crushing the edge of the stone-lined overflow channel. The rotary cutter followed, catching the temporary brace beneath the spring wall. Wood cracked. The capstone shifted. A rush of muddy water broke through the stones Noah had reset and spilled across the lane. Grant looked back, but did not stop. Noah stood in the spreading water, watching 4 evenings of careful work come apart in less than 4 seconds. Leah moved first. She splashed through the overflow and grabbed the broken brace before it washed beneath the capstone. "Tell me what to hold." "The wall." "Not that." "Which part?" "All of it." Noah dropped to his knees in the water and shoved his shoulder beneath the timber. The capstone had settled less than an inch, but its weight pressed the upper wall outward. Mud boiled through the widening gaps. "Get Ruth," he said. Leah ran. Noah wedged a loose limestone slab under the brace and pushed until the timber rose. Water soaked his shirt and filled his boots. The wall answered with a low grinding sound. "Don't," he told it. The wall showed no respect for tone. Ruth arrived carrying a jack from the machine shed. Leah followed with blocks and a short length of chain. Together, they set the jack on a flat stone, chained the timber to keep it from slipping, and raised the capstone enough for Noah to replace the crushed support. "Slow," Ruth said. "Half a turn. I know. Then be comforted by agreement." Once the load rested on fresh blocks, Noah pulled away. His right shoulder burned. Mud coated him from chest to knees. Leah stood in the broken channel, breathing hard. "He saw us." "I know." He looked back. "I know." Ruth examined the tire print across the overflow. The tread had pushed 3 lining stones into the mud and cracked the new pipe Noah had laid beneath the lane. "Did he aim for it?" Leah asked. "No," Noah said. Ruth looked at him. "He didn't have to," Noah added. "He knew it was there and decided it should move." The tractor came back 20 minutes later. Grant approached from the upper field without the cutter running, though the blade still turned slowly beneath the deck. Noah walked downhill and closed the gate across the lane. Grant stopped on the other side. "You gonna open that?" he called. "No, I need out." "You have another route. Not with the cutter. You got in without asking. I've used this lane for years. That was before you left it to me." Grant shut off the engine and climbed down. Sweat had darkened the front of his shirt. He looked past Noah toward the spring, where Ruth and Leah were packing stones around the temporary support. "What happened?" Noah stared at him. "I didn't see the brace," Grant said. "You look back. I heard something. You drove over the channel. The channel crosses the lane. The lane crosses my acre." Grant put a hand on the gate. "So, fix it in a way that doesn't block equipment. You could help fix what you broke. I didn't tell you to build a dam in the road. It's a spring box. It's a pile of rocks falling into mud." Noah stepped closer. The gate stood between them, but the old rails were low enough that neither man could pretend it offered protection. "Use the upper entrance," he said. Grant's expression flattened. "Open the gate." "No, I'm not leaving the cutter in that field." "Then take the route you used after Ruth blocked you. That slope is rough. So is my acre. You seemed pleased about that." Grant lifted the chain from the post. Noah put his hand over it. For several seconds they held the same length of metal. Leah came down the lane. "Grant," he looked at her. "Stay out of it. I was standing in the water you caused." "You standing somewhere doesn't make it your business." "No, lying for you did." Grant released the chain as if it had become dirty. "You want to turn against me because you feel guilty? Go ahead," he said. "It won't make him forgive you." Leah's face lost color. Noah opened the gate. Grant smiled without warmth. "Changed your mind?" "No. I'm letting you leave once." He stepped aside. Grant drove through, the tractor passing close enough to shake the gate on its hinges. This time, he avoided the channel. Noah closed the gate behind him and wrapped the chain twice around the post. Marlene arrived before dark, summoned by Leah. She came down the lane carrying her handbag and wearing the rubber boots from her previous visit. Grant had told her the brace was too close to the road. Leah had told her the tire went directly over the marked channel. Marlene stood between the accounts with the exhausted expression of a person who had spent years calling division balance. "Can it be repaired?" she asked. "Yes," Noah said. "How much?" "Not everything is an invoice. If it costs money, the estate can." The estate didn't drive the tractor. She pressed her lips together. Grant should have stopped. He should come back. I asked him. He said there's no point in everybody shouting at each other. He's right. He could work quietly. Ruth handed Marlene a bucket. Marlene looked at it. "What's this?" "We need the mud baled from that corner. I came to talk. You can do both. It's why the bucket has a handle." Noah expected Marlene to put it down. Instead, she set her handbag on a dry stone, stepped into the overflow, and began scooping muddy water from the spring box. She worked badly, splashing her sleeves and pouring half the water onto her own boots. Ruth corrected her twice. Marlene accepted it once. They stabilized the wall before the light failed. The stone channel remained broken, but the spring no longer threatened to collapse. Noah laid a sheet of plywood over the opening and weighted it with rocks. When they finished, Marlene washed her hands in the clear trickle emerging uphill. "Daddy used to bring us here when the pump lost power," she said. "We filled milk jugs and complained the whole way. Did the pipe feed the house? Noah asked. No, the troughs. There was a concrete tank by the barn and another near the lower field. Grant said the line was dead. It stopped running years ago. Or maybe he stopped checking. She rubbed mud from beneath one fingernail. I'll tell him the lane is closed. You shouldn't have to tell him. No, she said. I shouldn't. It was the first time she had agreed without protecting Grant in the same breath. The gash across the overflow dried pale beneath a week of hard sun. Noah worked the chimney job with Daniel during the day and rebuilt the spring in the evenings. He carried stone until his right shoulder ached, then switched sides. Ruth cut braces. Leah came twice after work, still dressed in office clothes beneath borrowed coveralls, and learned to pack gravel without burying the drain. Nobody invited Grant. Noah altered the channel where it crossed the lane. Instead of running open between lining stones, the water passed beneath a flat limestone bridge supported on either side. The surface could bear a truck if necessary, though the closed gate made clear that necessity required a conversation. When he removed the temporary support, the capstone settled onto the rebuilt walls and held. Ruth inspected the joints with a flashlight. That'll outlive the tent. Low standard, still past it. The spring cleared faster after the wall was reset. Cold water rose through the gravel, filled the stone basin, and spilled into the repaired overflow without carrying soil. Noah cleaned the pipe mouth again, fed the flexible rod inside, and struck the same obstruction 12 feet down. This time, he measured the distance on the surface. The blockage lay beneath the lane, almost exactly where tractor tires had crossed for years. He and Leah dug until the shovel exposed rusted galvanized pipe flattened into an oval. A split ran along its underside. Pale roots packed the opening downstream. Committed root, Leah said. Root's going to be unbearable. She already is. This won't change much. They cut out the crushed section and fitted the new length Noah had bought. At Ruth's suggestion, they sleeved it through a wider pipe before covering it, protecting the water line from future weight. When Noah pulled the root mass from the downhill end, trapped water surged over his wrists. The pipe coughed brown, then ran clear. All three of them followed its buried root downhill. Ruth probed with a steel rod, while Noah watched for changes in the ground. The line crossed the boundary below the spring and entered Grant's field beneath a sagging section of old wire. They stopped there. Does it belong to him after this? Leah asked. The pipe does, Noah said. The water starts up there. Water doesn't care about deeds, Ruth said. That sounds printed on a pillow. I'll burn it. Noah left the line open. He had no use for all the spring produced, and blocking it would only force overflow across the lane. For several days, the pipe continued taking water downhill, though they could not see where it emerged. The weather stayed dry. Grass along the county shoulder turned gray at the tips. Dust followed Ruth's Ford and hung over the road after it passed. Daniel's next job, a low garden wall, ended each afternoon with the homeowner running a hose over the work so the mortar would not cure too fast. On Crow Ridge, the spring kept filling. Noah set a clean barrel beneath the overflow and used the water to wash tools and dampen the soil on the bench. He cleared a strip along the rebuilt fence and planted herbs Ruth divided from her garden: rosemary, sage, and 2 stubborn clumps of thyme. Those aren't crops, she said. They're plants, not at the rate you eat. At night, Noah could hear cattle bawling from beyond Grant's lower field. The sound carried up the dry ridge in long, irritated calls. Grant came to the gate the next afternoon. He did not bring the tractor. He arrived on foot and waited outside the chain. Noah was fitting a stone step near the tent. He set down his hammer but did not go to meet him immediately. The lower trough's empty, Grant said. Then fill it. The spring line isn't running. It was when it crossed my boundary. I checked the tank. Nothing. Could be blocked farther down. You repaired it. I repaired the crushed part on my land. Grant looked toward the spring. The clear overflow slipped between stones and beneath the lane. Did you divert it into that barrel? The barrel catches overflow. Pipe takes water first. You sure? Noah walked to the gate. You came to ask or accuse. I came because I need water. The admission cost Grant enough that he immediately covered it. Temporarily, he added, until we get rain. I'll help trace the line. I don't need you walking my field. Just open the spring pipe. It is open, then make it run. That isn't how gravity works. Grant gripped the top rail. I have stock down there, so let's find the blockage. I said I can handle my side. Then handle it. Grant stared through the gate toward the spring system he had called a muddy hole. "What do you want?" he asked. "For what?" "The water." Noah almost laughed. "You're offering to buy it now?" "I'm asking what it takes to stop playing games. I'm not playing one. Everybody wants something." Noah looked at the dry hayfield behind him. "Come back with a shovel," he said. "We'll follow the pipe together." Grant's hand tightened on the rail. "I don't work for you." "No," Noah said. "That seems to be the problem." Grant let go of the rail. "You'd let the trough stay dry over a shovel. I offered to help." "You offered to watch me ask. You're standing at my gate telling me to make water appear." Grant's eyes flicked toward the herbs, the barrel, and the orderly stonework around the spring. "This little kingdom's gone to your head." Noah looked at the blue tarp over his tent. "You caught me," he said. "Absolute power." Grant walked away. Ruth emerged from the sycamores carrying a basket of cut rosemary. She had been close enough to hear every word and tactful enough to pretend otherwise for nearly 6 seconds. "You should check the pipe at the boundary," she said. "I already know it runs there. You knew 3 days ago. The spring hasn't changed. Neither has Grant." We continue checking him. They disconnected the pipe at the last coupling before it crossed into Grant's field. Water poured immediately, cold and steady, darkening the dry ground. Noah fitted it back together. "Blockage is his side," he said. "Call him. He just left." "Then his ears are nearby." Noah called. Grant did not answer. He sent a message explaining what they had found and repeated the offer to trace the line if Grant gave permission to enter the field. No reply came. The bawling continued after sunset. Noah lay awake beneath the tarp, listening. He knew Grant had a stock trailer and could haul water from the barn hydrant. Nobody was going thirsty because of one clogged pipe. Still, each call from the lower field sounded like an accusation arriving uphill. At dawn, the barrel beside the overflow was full. Noah moved it and watched clean water run into the grass. The spring did not know anyone was fighting over it. Daniel found him distracted on the garden wall job. "You put the same stone down 3 times, he said. "It had options. It has one good face." Noah turned it again. Daniel took the stone from his hands and set it aside. "What happened?" "Grant's trough line is blocked." "Your brother?" "Cousin. Same trouble, fewer holidays. He thinks I stopped the water." "Did you?" "No." "Then why do you look guilty?" Noah chose another stone. "Because I can fix it." "Does he want you to?" "He wants it fixed without needing me." Daniel grunted. Popular service. They worked until the heat made the mortar stiffen in the tray. Daniel shaded the fresh joints with damp burlap and sent Noah home early. "You're paying for the day," Noah said. "I'm paying for the wall. Today you're dangerous to symmetry." On the drive back, Ruth's Ford coughed twice and lost its fuel gauge. Noah stopped for gas, even though the needle showed half full. The cost left him with less cash than he needed for Pruitt's used transmission. He stood beside the pump, watching the numbers climb, and thought about the $3,000 he had refused. Refusing still felt right. It had not become easier. Marlene's sedan waited at the lane. She sat inside with the air conditioning running, face pale behind the windshield. "Grant hauled water twice yesterday," she said when Noah approached. "The concrete tank by the barn won't hold. There's a crack near the bottom. The pipe blockage is on his field. He says you changed something at the spring. I repaired it. Can you prove water crosses the fence?" "I disconnected the coupling this morning." Ruth saw it. Marlene nodded, absorbing that without argument. "Will you come down and look?" did Grant ask. "I'm asking. It isn't your field." Frustration sharpened her voice. "Must everything be a lesson?" "No. Sometimes it's a boundary. That sounds rehearsed. I've had practice." She stepped out of the car. Her linen blouse had darkened beneath the arms. The drought seemed to be wearing everybody down at the edges. "There are 37 head in that lower pasture," she said. "The barn hydrant is slow. Grant is filling an 800-gallon tank, pulling it down with the tractor, and pouring into troughs that leak. He is exhausted. He could save energy by answering his phone. I told him that." "What did he say?" "Something I will not repeat on church property." "We're not on church property. I'm practicing." Noah looked down the lane at the gate Grant had once opened without asking. Marlene's gaze followed his. "I know he should apologize," she said. "He should stop first." "I can't make him." "Neither can I." "No, but you can keep the stock watered while he learns." The request irritated Noah because it was reasonable. Grant's pride did not belong to the cattle. It also did not grant Noah permission to walk onto land that was not his. "Tell him I'll meet him at the boundary at 6, Noah said. "He brings a shovel. He tells me I can follow the pipe. We find the blockage together, and if he won't, then he hauls water." Marlene left with that answer. At 5:40, Grant's pickup came up the road. He parked outside the gate and remained behind the wheel until 6. Then he got out carrying no shovel. He held a white envelope. Noah was repairing the stone step. Ruth had gone home, having declared the conversation a matter for people whose blood relation impaired judgment. Grant extended the envelope over the gate. 500, for what? "Get the line running. You want to hire me? I want to end this." Noah did not take it. "You gave me permission to enter the field. Do what you need to do. And after it's fixed, what do you mean? The spring is on my acre. The pipe crosses at the boundary. Somebody has to maintain both ends. We've always used that water. You told me it was dead. It was, because the line wasn't maintained." Grant slapped the envelope against the top rail. $500. That's more than fair for a few hours digging. I don't want money for water. Everybody wants money. I want you to ask before you use the lane. I want you to repair the channel you crushed and the brace you broke. And if the line needs work on my side, you don't touch it without me. Grant's laugh was tired and ugly. "There it is? There what is? You want me under your thumb. I want you outside my gate until I open it. You think 1 acre lets you dictate how the whole farm works? No. It lets me dictate how 1 acre works." Grant pushed the envelope back into his pocket. "Fine. Keep your muddy hole. I'll tear out the old line and run something that doesn't depend on you. From what water? There are other options. Then use them. Maybe I'll put in a new intake at the spring." Noah stood. "You're not touching the spring. You don't own the water. You told Ellen existing water use should continue. Existing use is a pipe, not you digging on my land." Grant reached for the chain. Noah stepped between him and the gate. "Don't. I'm going to inspect the line. Bring a shovel and ask." "I am done asking. You haven't started." Grant jerked the chain upward. It caught beneath the iron hook. He pulled harder. The hinge post held, but the gate twisted, its bottom rail grinding against the ground. Noah grabbed the chain. "Let go! Move! Let go!" Grant yanked sideways. The old upper rail split at the hinge with a dry crack. One side of the gate dropped, wrenching the new screws from the brace. The free end struck Noah's thigh and knocked him backward. For an instant, both men stared at the broken wood. Then, Noah shoved the gate off his leg. Grant stepped through the opening. Noah caught him by the front of his shirt. Grant's fist closed on Noah's wrist. Neither swung. They stood chest to chest, breathing hard, each waiting for the other to become the man responsible for what happened next. A car horn sounded from the road. Marlene had stopped behind Grant's pickup. She left her door open and came up the lane at a run, awkward in her rubber boots. "Get off him," she said. Grant released Noah's wrist. Noah let go of his shirt. Marlene looked at the broken gate, then at the white scrape on Noah's jeans where the rail had struck. "What did you do?" Grant pointed toward the spring. "He's holding the farm's water hostage." "No, he isn't." "I saw the pipe running at the boundary." Grant's expression changed. "You checked?" I asked Ruth. "You went behind my back. I went downhill. You should try it." Marlene picked up the split rail. The break exposed pale wood beneath decades of weather. "Daddy built this gate," she said. "It was rotten," Grant replied. "You broke it? He blocked me out. It is his gate. It's our farm." "No," she said. "That's the problem. You keep saying farm when you mean yours." Grant stared at her. The anger in his face gave way to something more wounded and less attractive. "I'm the one keeping it alive," he said. "You are hauling water in a cracked tank because you refuse to bring a shovel." Noah almost looked at Marlene. Her voice sounded unlike anything he had heard from her before. Grant kicked the broken lower rail aside. "Fine. Everybody wants me humbled. Enjoy it." He walked toward his pickup. The cattle called from below. Noah looked at the gate hanging from one hinge, then at Marlene. She had started crying silently, furious enough not to wipe her face. "Grant," Noah called. His cousin stopped but did not turn. "Get the shovel from your truck. I didn't bring one. Ruth has 3. Grant glanced back. "One to use," Noah said. "One to loan. One because nobody returns the one she loans." Marlene made a wet, startled sound that might have been a laugh. Grant did not. But he waited while Noah went to the machine shed. They began at the boundary. Noah disconnected the coupling and water spilled over Grant's boots. "There," he said. "My side works." Grant looked down at his wet boots. "Congratulations. Your turn." They followed the buried pipe across the field, probing with Ruth's steel rod. Marlene walked behind them, carrying the spare shovel. The earth was hard enough to ring beneath the blade. Near the old concrete tank, the probe struck metal only 6 inches down. They dug and uncovered a valve box packed with silt. The shutoff inside had corroded halfway closed. Beyond it, the pipe was clogged with mineral scale, and a root that had entered through a failed coupling. Grant knelt opposite Noah in the hole. "I replaced this valve 10 years ago," he said. "You were 24. I know how old I was. You installed it backward." Grant wiped sweat from his eyes with a muddy wrist. "It still worked. For 10 years. That's longer than your tent." Noah looked at him. Grant's mouth moved as if the joke had surprised him too. They cut out the failed coupling. Grant held the pipe while Noah fitted the replacement from his supplies. Marlene bailed the valve box with Ruth's loaned bucket. When Noah reopened the spring connection, air hissed through the line. Then water surged past the new coupling and disappeared toward the tank. They followed it downhill. The concrete tank had lost most of its water through the crack, but the pipe entered above the damage and continued to a lower trough. A minute passed. Then the outlet coughed rust-colored water, spat a clot of roots, and began to run clear. The cattle crowded close. Grant rested both hands on the rim. His shoulders sagged with a relief he tried to hide. Noah watched the trough fill. "I'll keep the line open through the drought," he said. Grant stared at the water. "Tomorrow," Noah continued, "you fix my gate." Grant kept his eyes on the trough. "You don't have to say it like I'm 12. I said tomorrow. I heard you." The clear stream struck the metal bottom and softened as the level rose. One of the cattle pushed its nose beneath the outlet, splashing water over Grant's shirt. He shoved the animal away without much force. Marlene stood a few yards back, holding the muddy bucket. "What about the crack in the tank?" she asked. Grant rubbed the wet spot on his chest. "I'll patch it." "Tomorrow?" Noah asked. Grant looked at him then. "Don't press your luck. My luck is a tent and a dead truck. You got the spring. You called it a hole. It's a productive hole." The words were not an apology, but they came without the usual edge. Grant walked uphill beside the pipe, checking the ground for leaks. At the boundary, he stopped beside the coupling. "I'll come at 7, he said. "Bring the cutter?" Noah asked. Grant's mouth tightened. "Too soon," Noah said. "By several years." He arrived at 6:40 the next morning with lumber, a cordless drill, and a post auger in the back of his pickup. Noah had barely finished coffee. Ruth was already at the gate, apparently drawn by the scent of reluctant labor. Grant examined the split rail. "This needs replacing." "It can be spliced," Noah said. "It's old." "So is the rest of the gate." "Exactly." Ruth handed Grant a chisel. "Remove the broken section without splitting the brace. I brought tools, then you can compare." Grant took the chisel. They worked in a silence broken by drilling, hammering, and Ruth's corrections. Noah cut a new locust rail from the lumber Grant brought. Grant fitted it between the old cross braces, then reinforced the hinge side with a narrow steel strap. He drove the first screw too deep. Ruth clicked her tongue. Grant backed it out. By 8, the gate hung again. The new rail shone yellow against the weathered wood. Grant swung it twice, checking clearance. "Should last," he said. "Unless somebody yanks the chain," Noah replied. Grant set the drill on the ground. "You want me to say I shouldn't have done it?" "Yes, I shouldn't have done it." Ruth picked up the drill. "I'm going to return this to the truck while nobody ruins the moment." She walked away. Grant rested his forearms on the top rail. "I thought you'd take the money. So did I. You need it." "I noticed. I wasn't trying to cheat you out of valuable ground. The acre is still mostly rock. It has the lane and spring, which make the rest of the farm work, and make my acre usable." Grant looked uphill. The herbs made a thin green strip near the fence. The tent's blue tarp glowed between the trees. "When Grandpa got sick, everything outside stopped, unless I did it," he said. "Hay didn't care about appointments. Cattle didn't care if the therapist was coming. You were in the house, and everybody acted like you were carrying the whole world." Noah leaned against the post. "You never asked for help. Neither did you. That excuse sounds worse from here." Grant looked at him, surprised, then gave a reluctant nod. I told Wade that old line was stupid, he said. Years ago. Couldn't turn equipment, had to keep cutting brush, spring channel washed across the lane. He said crooked didn't mean wrong. What did he say about moving it? He said, leave it. There was the sentence Grant had avoided in the dining room. Noah's hands curled around the gate rail. So you knew. I thought he was being stubborn. After the stroke, he couldn't walk the line. The fence was falling anyway. I straightened it. You put the spring and road access on your side. I made the shape cleaner. For you. Yes. The answer was so plain that Noah had no prepared response. Grant stared toward the field. I figured you'd sell the acre, or ignore it. You hadn't lived here in years before Wade got sick. I lived in his back bedroom for 18 months. That's not the same. No, it had plumbing. Grant almost smiled but stopped. I should have told him what I was doing, he said. I should have told all of you. You should have left it. That too. The apology remained incomplete. It did not mention the flag between the rocks or the pleasure Grant had taken in presenting Noah's inheritance as a joke. Noah could have demanded more. Instead, he unwrapped the chain. I'm going to check the lower coupling at noon, Grant said. Can I use the lane? Noah opened the gate. Yes. Grant drove through slowly and avoided the stone bridge over the overflow. Leah arrived later with a dining chair tied in the trunk of her sedan. Its carved back protruded above the lid, wrapped in a blanket. Why do you have one chair? Noah asked. Because I can't fit 8. You're returning them? To Marlene. The table too, when I hire somebody with a truck. You like that table. I liked what I thought it was worth. She untied the chair and set it beneath the walnut. I'm still taking the cash. I need it, and Grandpa left it to me. But I don't want to carry the dining room out of the house while pretending my decisions weren't shaped by what I expected to get. Noah ran a thumb over a scratch in the chair leg. He remembered sitting there during the will reading, unable to feel his feet. Does returning furniture fix that? He asked. No. Then why do it? Because keeping it would let me tell myself nothing cost me. She looked toward the rebuilt gate. Did Grant do that? Most of it. Did you hit him with Ruth's shovel? She counts them. Leah laughed. Marlene said he was up here before breakfast. I thought she was hallucinating. They loaded the chair into Ruth's Ford because its bed could hold the rest. Ruth supervised the furniture move with open disapproval. That table is ugly, she said. It was Grandma's, Leah replied. Those statements coexist. At the farmhouse, Marlene stood in the dining room, surrounded by empty rectangles where Leah had begun preparing the furniture for removal. She watched them carry the table back into its original place. You don't have to do this, she told Leah. I know. Daddy wanted you to have it. I know that too. Marlene touched the polished edge. Then why? Leah glanced at Noah. He shook his head. Use your own sentence. She inhaled. Because I kept quiet when I should have spoken. Partly because I wanted my distribution. I can't undo that. I can stop acting like the furniture means more than it did. Marlene looked down at the table. Your grandmother bought this at an estate sale for $90. Leah blinked. What? She told everyone it was an antique because she was embarrassed. Ruth, carrying 2 chairs through the doorway, said, It's still ugly. The laugh that followed did not absolve anybody. It did make room to set the chairs down. Water continued running through the dry weeks. Grant repaired the concrete tank with hydraulic cement and replaced 2 cracked sections of pipe on his field. He asked before using Noah's lane, even when the answer was obviously yes. At first, each request sounded sarcastic. Gradually, it became ordinary. Noah kept no tally of the gallons. Grant paid for the replacement couplings and brought a load of washed gravel for the spring drain without calling it payment. They did not discuss ownership whenever the trough filled. The agreement existed in repeated behavior. Noah maintained the spring head, Grant maintained the lower line, and neither crossed the fence without permission. Daniel's chimney job led to a porch foundation, then a collapsed garden wall at a house near Maryville. Noah's hands toughened, his appetite returned. He stopped apologizing every time he checked his phone during lunch. Pruitt's used transmission remained on a pallet until Noah had enough to pay for the installation. When he finally drove the pickup back to the ridge, it shifted so smoothly he circled the county road twice to feel it happen. Ruth inspected it from her porch. You planning to return my Ford? I cleaned it. Why? There were acorns under the seat. Emergency food. He handed her the keys and a full tank receipt. She examined the gray door. You failed to improve this. I considered fire. My husband tried that method. With reliable transportation and steady work, Noah began laying a foundation on the bench. Not a house yet. He could not afford walls, windows, or a roof. He set broad limestone footings for a one-room cabin and left space for a small stove. The rocks Grant had mocked became useful one by one. Marlene brought Wade's old drafting table from the farmhouse. Noah protested that it belonged with her inheritance. He used it in the back room for years, she said, mostly to stack mail. I don't have a back room. You have 4 lines of stone. Use your imagination. The table remained beneath a temporary lean-to beside the tent. Noah used it to sketch the spring channel and make lists of materials he could buy each week. The first clouds appeared as a dark line beyond the western ridge. After weeks of white sky, nobody trusted them. Grant cut hay until the wind rose and leaves showed their pale undersides. Rain struck after midnight. It hit the tarp so hard Noah woke thinking a branch had fallen. Water ran from the rocky crest in sheets, following paths baked hard by drought. He pulled on boots and stepped outside with a flashlight. The upper drains filled quickly. Wade's old stone channels caught the runoff, slowed it, and turned it along the contour. Where Noah had cleared them, the water behaved. Where roots and leaves remained, it jumped the edges and rushed toward the bench. Noah grabbed a shovel. Ruth's flashlight appeared below, moving up the lane. Leah's headlights reached the road minutes later. Marlene had called her after hearing the storm from the farmhouse. Grant came through the gate last, carrying sandbags from the barn. "North Channel's overtopping," he shouted. "I see it." They worked in rain that flattened their clothes against their bodies. Ruth cleared the culvert beneath the lane. Leah and Marlene filled bags with gravel. Grant carried them to the weak corner, while Noah opened a blocked spillway with the digging bar. The spring box filled to the capstone. For one frightening second, muddy water seeped through the joint. Grant's cutter had damaged. Noah pressed a hand against it and felt the stones vibrate. "Bag here," he called. Grant dropped one beside him, then another. "Not against the face," Noah said. "Uphill. Take pressure off." Grant moved without arguing. The diverted runoff found the restored channel and swept beneath the stone bridge. Water spread into the lower swale instead of tearing through the lane. The wall stopped trembling. They remained outside until the rain softened. At dawn, the acre steamed beneath a gray sky. The tent stood. The gate stood. The spring overflow ran full and clear, feeding the pipe downhill. One section of herbs lay flat, but the soil around their roots remained. Noah walked the original fence line. At every bend, the old decisions showed themselves. Water had pooled where Wade meant it to, turned where the stones directed it, and left the acre without taking the acre along. Near the road gate, Grant waited on the other side. "Upper field's a mess," he said. Noah lifted the chain. Grant put one hand on the wet rail. "Can I come through?" Noah opened the gate. "Yes." Grant stepped through, and Noah closed the gate behind him. The upper field had taken the storm badly. Water had cut 2 deep ruts where Grant once turned the tractor across the old lane. Cut hay lay pressed against the lower fence in a brown mat. Near the ridge, a shallow sheet of runoff still moved downhill. Grant stood with his hands on his hips. "I'll lose some of that," he said. Noah followed the water with his eyes. It crossed the edge of Grant's field, reached the restored fence, and turned into one of Wade's stone-lined drains. Not all of it. "No." Grant walked to the drain and pulled out a branch lodged across the mouth. Water rushed through, carrying leaves but little soil. "If I'd kept the new fence," he said, "I could have cleaned this from my side. If you'd kept the new fence, this channel would have been under your turning area." Always an answer. You asked a lot of questions after the work was done. They cleared the blockage together. Grant used his hands because neither had brought a rake. When the channel ran clean, they followed it to the spring, where the overflow passed beneath the lane and entered the swale without cutting the road. Grant crouched beside the pipe. "The lower trough's still running," he said. "It should." "You didn't close it during the rain." "Why would I?" "Tank was full. So was the ground." The pipe gave the spring somewhere to go. Grant wiped mud on already muddy jeans. "I thought you'd use the water to make a point." "I did?" Grant looked up. "The point was that it works." They both turned when Marlene called from the gate. She and Leah were carrying the last sandbags toward Ruth's ford. Ruth followed, collecting tools and announcing which ones had been abandoned incorrectly. Grant stood. "I'll replace the gravel we used," he said. "We used it to protect your water, too. I'll replace half." That's fair. The word seemed to discomfort him more than an accusation. At Ruth's house, all five of them left wet boots in the laundry room. Ruth objected when Grant set his on top of Noah's, as if even muddy footwear required boundaries. Marlene cooked eggs in a skillet while Leah made toast. Grant sat on one of Ruth's decorative pillows until she removed it from beneath him without explanation. Noah drank coffee from the thermos lid because there were not enough clean mugs. "This is very healing," Leah said. "No one call it that," Grant replied. "Agreed," Noah said. Marlene brought the eggs to the table. Her hair had dried in uneven curls and mud streaked one sleeve. She looked around for a trivet. Ruth pointed to a stack by the stove. "Not the floured one. It's useless. Why keep it? It was a gift. From who? Someone I no longer speak to." Grant leaned toward Noah. "There's a lesson in that." "Eat your eggs," Ruth said. They did. Nothing was settled at the table because nothing needed to be settled there. Grant did not offer a better apology. Leah did not ask Noah whether he forgave her. Marlene did not explain away the months she had left him alone with Wade. They passed toast, complained about the storm, and argued over whether the hay could be salvaged. It was ordinary enough to feel unfamiliar. When they finished, Grant carried his plate to the sink. He stopped beside Leah. "I shouldn't have told you Wade approved the fence." "No, I thought he should have." "That isn't the same." "I know." Leah folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. "I shouldn't have believed you just because it was convenient. I know that too." They looked at each other, neither absolving the other. Ruth handed Grant a dish towel. Dry? He did. The ground remained soft for several days after the storm. Noah used the chance to deepen the upper drains and reset stones that had shifted. Grant brought his tractor to haul the displaced rock, stopping at the gate each time, even when Noah stood 20 feet away and could see what he wanted. After the third request, Noah said, "You don't have to perform it. I'm asking. I know. That's what you wanted." It was. Grant waited. Noah opened the gate. "Come through." The drought broke unevenly. Some afternoons brought only enough rain to darken dust. Others filled the spring box to the capstone. The restored channels handled both. Water continued to the lower troughs, and Grant repaired the cracked concrete tank, rather than trusting another patch. They agreed that Noah would maintain everything above the boundary, and Grant would maintain the lower line. If equipment needed the lane, Grant would ask. If Noah had to enter the hayfield for repairs, he would do the same. No one used the word permanent. They repeated the arrangement often enough that it became so. Ellen completed the transfer using the restored fence line. When she called to say the deed had been recorded, Noah was on scaffolding beside Daniel, repointing a chimney. "You own it now," she said. "I thought I already did." "You inherited it." The paperwork caught up. "Did the paperwork repair anything?" "No." "Then it's slower than Ruth." "Most institutions are." Noah put the phone away and returned to the chimney. He had spent too long imagining ownership as something that might arrive in a stamped envelope and alter the shape of his life. The acre had become his through smaller acts, driving through its gate, setting stone, sleeping through rain, telling Grant no, then opening the gate after Grant asked. Daniel sent him to inspect the collapsed spring house 2 counties over. The owner had heard about Mrs. Hensley's wall and wanted someone who understood both dry stone and water. "You're not coming?" Noah asked. "I've seen a spring." "You trust me with the estimate?" "I trust you to come back with the wrong one and learn." The spring house took 6 days. Noah rebuilt one corner, cleared the outlet, and reused nearly every original stone. The owner paid without arguing. Afterward, 2 more wall jobs came through the same recommendation. Daniel added Noah's name back to the weekly schedule in permanent marker. Noah noticed but did not mention it. 7 Monday, Daniel said. "I know what 7 means. You're improving." Pruitt installed the used transmission. Noah paid from his own earnings and left the $3,000 offer folded in the toolbox, stained with spring mud. He never signed it. He also never threw it away. The paper remained useful as a reminder that need could make a poor bargain look merciful. On the acre, the stone foundation became walls. Noah bought salvaged lumber from a dismantled tobacco barn and 2 mismatched windows from a reuse warehouse. Daniel loaned him scaffolding. Ruth loaned tools with green-painted handles and counted them each evening. Leah came on Saturdays, sometimes with fried chicken and sometimes with nothing but gloves. Her first few visits held the strain of penance. She volunteered for the heaviest work and refused breaks until Noah finally dropped a bucket of mortar beside her. "If you collapse," he said, "I'm leaving you to Ruth. That cruel, she'll make you sort beans while unconscious." Leah sat. Forgiveness did not arrive as a decision. It appeared in ordinary permissions. Noah let her measure window openings without checking behind her. He called when he needed someone to hold the far end of a beam. One evening, he handed her the key to the new toolbox and forgot to ask for it back until the next week. Marlene brought a small iron stove Wade had kept in the smokehouse. It needed cleaning and a new gasket, but the body was sound. "He bought it for a hunting cabin he never built," she said. "I'm not hunting. He wasn't either. He liked preparations better than events." She also brought the metal cup Noah remembered from the spring. Its handle was bent, and a length of old wire remained looped through it. "I found it in the equipment barn," she said. Noah washed the cup and hung it beside the rebuilt spring box. When he drank from it, the water was so cold it hurt his teeth. Grant helped raise the roof. He arrived with 4 sheets of metal left from repairing the equipment barn and called them scrap, until Ruth pointed out they were still bundled from the supplier. "Fine," he said, "nearly scrap." Noah accepted them. The one-room cabin was not finished when the first frost whitened the bench. The interior walls showed studs, and the floor creaked near the stove. It had electricity from a simple service line, but no indoor plumbing. Noah carried water from the spring and used Ruth's shower more often than he admitted. Still, the night he moved out of the tent, he slept beneath a roof that did not drip. He woke before dawn and listened. No oxygen machine, no tarp snapping, no voice calling his name. The quiet did not feel like being fired anymore. It felt unfinished in a way that belonged to him. In early spring, he planted 8 apple trees along the narrow shelf. Ruth chose old varieties that tolerated poor soil and warned him not to expect fruit soon. How soon? Years. That's rude. Trees dislike desperation. The herbs spread along the terraces. A restaurant owner Ruth knew began buying small bundles of rosemary, sage, and thyme each week. The money covered fuel and seed, little more. But Noah liked delivering something that had grown, where Grant said weeds struggled. Stone remained his real income. He repaired walls, drains, and 2 more spring houses. He learned to turn down work when the schedule was full. Daniel pretended this offended him, and then began sending Noah the jobs involving hills and water. Grant's hay came back green, the lower trough filled without hauling. When he needed the lane, he called. Once, after receiving no answer, he waited outside the gate for 20 minutes rather than opening it himself. Noah found him leaning against the pickup. "You could have come through," Noah said. "You would have said I didn't ask. You did ask. I missed the call. That sounds like an exception designed after the fact." Noah opened the gate. "You're learning fences." Grant looked toward Ruth's house. "That contagious?" "Unfortunately." The first supper on the acre happened after the cabin porch was finished. Leah proposed it. Marlene organized it. Grant provided folding tables and ice without being asked. Ruth declared that if anyone called it a celebration, she would go home, though her house was close enough that the threat lacked force. Noah spent the afternoon clearing tools from the porch. He set Wade's drafting table against the cabin wall and hung the metal cup back beside the spring, after polishing it unnecessarily. Ruth arrived early with green beans and found him resetting a loose stone near the gate. "That one moved?" she asked. "No." "Then why are you touching it? It looked wrong. It's becoming clear why Wade picked this place for you." Noah sat back on his heels. "Did he ever tell you that?" Ruth placed the bowl on the gatepost. "Not exactly. That usually means you're about to say something important and deny responsibility." She looked up the ridge, toward the stone terraces and the young apple trees. "Years ago, after you reset that wall by the spring and the rain, Wade stood at our fence and watched you. Said Crow Ridge was the only piece of his farm that gave back exactly what a person put into it." Noah remembered being 19, muddy and angry. Certain Wade had invented work to keep him occupied. "What did you say?" "I told him that was because he'd put nothing but rocks into it." Noah laughed. Ruth's expression softened. "He said you understood difficult ground." The laughter left him gently. "Was he talking about leaving it to me?" "I don't know. Wade said half of what mattered sideways and expected everybody else to turn their heads. He could have told me." "Yes." The answer held no defense of him. Noah looked at the cabin, the spring, and the original fence. "I thought the will meant I hadn't mattered. Wade may have thought it said the opposite. He was wrong. Yes, Ruth said again. People can love you and still leave you terrible instructions. Cars sounded on the county road. Leah came first, carrying fried chicken. Marlene followed with ham biscuits and the silver swan-shaped coffee pot, laughing before she reached the gate because it had leaked into her basket. Grant brought the folding tables uphill, one tucked beneath each arm. They stopped outside the original fence. "Where do you want these?" Grant asked. Noah looked at the open gate, then at the level ground beside the cabin. "Right here," he said. He stepped aside, and they carried the table through.